All right, guys, welcome to episode 7, I believe it is, of the PlayStation podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. That was the introduction to the Halloween theme that I put together. Obviously, we'll be taking that off. Hope everyone's had a good Halloween over the weekend. How you doing, Mark and Mark? Hope you guys are doing well. I'm Belton. So we've got a fair bit to talk about. There's a lot happening from a gaming perspective and platform perspective. And I'll go into kind of a more detail just in a couple of moments. How you doing, Petrov? Hope you're doing well, buddy. So episode 7 of the PlayStation podcast, weekly podcast, where we talk about obviously PlayStation and other things happening in the world of gaming. Hope you guys can hear me well. If there's any problems, let me know with the sound or the video. So what are we talking about today then? So I've got 3 main topics. And then, of course, at the end, we'll always take a look at the channel polls and some of the comments. 4K HDR, fantastic, great. So thankfully, it's coming across really well. Try to always kind of stream in 4K if I can. Have had issues with the PC. I always have issues with the PC crashing randomly. So if it does crash, I will be logging back in about 5 minutes time, so bear with me on that one. So what we're talking about today, so we're starting off with the new PlayStation Portal update. Whenever that update goes live, it means you can play your PlayStation Portal without having to have a PlayStation 5. And that's a big thing. That's a massive thing. We'll talk about it in more detail. But that's a huge update, and it could be a game changer from a handheld perspective, and also Sony's strategy going forward. And then the second topic of the podcast is around the PlayStation 5 sales so far versus PlayStation 4. And will we see the PlayStation 5 outsell the PlayStation 4 console sales, lifetime sales, that is? I think we're at 117 million, I think it was, the PlayStation 4 hit lifetime console sales, and currently the PlayStation 5 is tracking at just over 80 million, and we know we've got a long way to go in terms of the console generation. So will the PlayStation 5 outsell the PlayStation 4 console generation? That's topic number 2. How you doing, Raz? Good to see you on the podcast. Been keeping an eye on your comments. And then, of course, the third topic, Amazon summarizes it quite nicely in terms of what's happening in the industry, but it is an industry-wide thing. So does the collapse of Amazon's gaming division, 14,000 staff let go or going to be let go? And of course, there's elements of AI being integrated. We know that. But does the collapse of their gaming divisions, their studios being closed, devs let go, does it prove that without exclusive content, good exclusive content, there's no reason for people to invest in those games? Or is it nothing to do with console exclusivity or platform exclusivity? We'll have that discussion later. And of course, then finally, we'll move on to the channel polls and comments. And they make for some interesting reading, I have to say. So that's what we've got coming up today. So hope you guys are keeping well. But I want to start, as I always do, with a shout out to the God of War and Uncharted channel members. Your support means absolutely everything. The names of the channel members, you can see it scrolling across the bottom of the screen. And of course, thank you to everyone else who tunes in, watches, likes, comments. You guys make all the difference. If you want to support the channel even more, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Consider becoming a channel member and consider putting forward some super chats. Right, guys. So what are you guys playing right now? What games are you into? I know some of you have already gone through, completed Yotei a couple of times. I haven't. I've had to be honest, my week this week in terms of playing Ghost of Yotei has been a complete write-off. So I haven't actually had the playthrough that I really wanted to with Ghost of Yotei this week. I've been working till fairly late in the evening, business related stuff, and I've only really had about about an hour and a half in the evenings this week. So I've ended up playing Battlefield instead, and I'm having an absolute blast on Battlefield. And I didn't want to get into a heavy story late at night, right? I wanted to give myself 3 or 4 hours of playtime, consecutive playtime before going into Yote. So it's been a bit of a write-off in terms of playing Yote this week, but I do plan on going back in next week. This week, that is, during the week. I think I'm 28 hours in. I've got 3 of the Yote 6 done. So that's how far I am in the game. And I was hoping I'd get at least 40, 45 hours in, but maybe by this time next week, I'll be at that 40 hour stage. But yeah, I've been playing my way through Battlefield 6, and I've got to say, I'm having an absolute blast playing the game. It's fun, but it's bloody frustrating as well at times because it's taking ages to level up for me. And it's taking it. I'm playing with a sniper, and it's taking a while to level up. But yeah, having a blast playing Ghost of Yote. Petrov, you're deep in Yote. It's good to see, buddy. So yeah, that's my week so far. The game you can see being played in the background this week, I've put on Call of Duty World War II, I think it is. That's my full playthrough. So it's about 5.5 hours of the full campaign. Great game. It's one of the best Call of Duty games, I think. So we're going to move on over to our first topic. And this is about, I'll get the article as well. This is about the PlayStation Portal that's just had what is going to be having an update. And this was leaked on Reddit. Raz, you're in Callisto Protocol, still on your Halloween themed games. That's fantastic. Yeah, I was hoping that the Silent Hill patch would have been updated for me to go back and revisit that, but I haven't had the chance. As for the horror games, they're just going to have to go on my backlog until after Yote's finished. I want to time it actually with the Silent Hill 2 movie coming out in January. I might make January the month of like scary games, horror games, stuff like that. That'll be a nice way to build myself up to the movie and then go and watch the movie in the cinema. I don't know if it's going to be any good, but it's a scary movie, right? It's worth going, I think, just to shit myself. Corey, how you doing, buddy? You don't think that the PlayStation 5 needs to outsell the PlayStation 4? Yeah, we're going to come on to that in a second. Sotnist, how you doing, buddy? Corey, you started playing Dying Light the Beast and Battlefield 6 and Borderlands 4 in between. Great stuff. Dying Light the Beast, I'm interested in giving a blast. I've heard good things about Borderlands 4 too. But yeah, it's too many games for me to focus on. I think 2 is probably the maximum I can do at any one stage. A single player game and one that's maybe a multiplayer type game. You know, I would say a Call of Duty in the past or a Battlefield style game. But yeah, Dying Light the Beast, I want to keep my eye on that. But Raz, Callisto Protocol is quality. I think so anyway. I love that game. Anything like that, you know, Alan Wake 2, Silent Hill 2, what I've played so far. Those types of games are brilliant. Dead Space remake, obviously, that was fantastic. So going back to the first article then. So we've got the PlayStation 5 Portal, and it's going to have a new feature where you can use the actual PlayStation Portal on its own as a standalone device without having to have a PlayStation 5 attached to it. It's not tethered. It's not remote play. You can literally, as long as you've got, there are some caveats, as long as you subscribe to PlayStation Plus Premium, as long as you subscribe to that, it means you can stream or play your games via cloud. So, and that was leaked during the week. It was on Reddit, and of course it's only an option if you're subscribed to the highest PlayStation Plus tier, which is debatable in itself. So Sony are going to roll this out at some point, but I suppose the question I would ask is, why wasn't this feature available at the beginning? Why now? Right? So why 2 or 3 years later? Why are we looking at this option now and not at the beginning? And will it affect future hardware sales? Has Sony realized actually it's not going to make an impact? Let's just go live with this feature. So it's just a few things to kind of throw into the mix. But let's take a look at this first article then about the PlayStation Portal. Let's Here we go. So, Corey, you're saying I'm at end game for Borderlands 4, so it's mostly just farming a few bosses and mobs in between, usually about an hour or so. You're going through games like people go through food, Corey. I know you got loads of time on. Well, so you're in a good position, right, work wise. And I know you get a lot of opportunities to play games, which is fantastic. I just wish I had that. But yeah, I do want to give Borderlands 4 a chance at some point. You know, one of the things I'm actually not too fussed about not having the time all the time is that because a lot of games go onto my backlog. By the time I actually get round to buying them, I often find they're in sale or discounted, or they're in bundles. So it kind of works out to be nice, unless it's a game I'm really looking forward to that kind of skips the queue, if you like Ghost of Yotei. I was always going to play that. GTA 6, I'm always going to get that day one, regardless of what game I'm playing. So those games are always going to skip the queue and get to the front of the line, if you like. Anything else is just going to have to take a back seat for a while. Razzie saying Callisto Protocol gets a bad rep mostly because of the combat system, which I understand as it can be frustrating, but the atmosphere and story are good. I visually the game looks absolutely brilliant. But you know, I think sometimes with horror games, I'm kind of in. I like horror games with the atmosphere, right? With the setting. I want that. I want to crap myself basically playing these games. I'm not really too bothered with what the action's like. Of course, it's got to be good. It's got to be decent. It can't be terrible. But I think from what I've played, from my playthrough of Callisto Protocol, I really had a good time. I enjoyed it, but I knew what I was going into. I knew the game had mixed reviews from certain outlets. I wasn't going in expecting Game of the Year or anything like that. It was just going to be a good gaming experience, and then move on to your next game. So that was my mentality going into it. So hopefully you're having a good time, because it's a really nice game. Sotnist, you're saying if PlayStation Portal was 1 inch thicker with PC mobile chip inside, it would be the perfect handheld design in your opinion. Nothing is more comfortable to hold. Interesting. Spooktacular Stacy, how you doing, bud? Hope you're doing well. Corey, you're saying, think that console gamers need to start looking at generations through the wider lens of ecosystem. The PS4 and now the Portal offer cheap alternatives for people who are not interested in making the full console investment and play into the PlayStation ecosystem. Yeah, there's a lot with this, especially with I suppose each console seems to be getting longer, right? Like the PlayStation 4 has been supported for such a long time. And when the PlayStation 6 comes out, the PS5 is still going to be supported for a very, very long time. All right, possibly even the next 10 years or so, we're going to be playing PlayStation 5 games, give or take. And a lot of people are now not seeing the benefits of jumping to the next platform because visually, like I said this before, visually, when you look at some games, all right, you can tell some games look absolutely stunning, but a large majority of games, unless you compare them side to side, they look fine. They look and play fine. When you're actually playing a game, when I was playing the PlayStation 4 games back in the day, I never used to moan about 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second. It never just occurred to me. I just wanted a great game. And the game, even on the PlayStation 3, the Uncharted games look absolutely stunning. And The Last of Us, the first one, looked fantastic. On the PlayStation 4, Spider-Man and God of War looked absolutely brilliant. We never complained about, look how good this game looks with ray tracing and 60 frames. We never really, that really wasn't even a consideration. I don't know, for some small people, you've got to play 60 frames per second. It's smoother. It's great. I get all that. But really, if you're having a great time playing a game, there's no reason to jump onto the next platform. And I think a lot of people are realizing that. And that's why we've got, 50 million people still on the PlayStation 4, 80 million on PlayStation 5. Even if the PlayStation 6 comes out, the uptake's not going to be as quick as it has been in previous generations. So I think people are quite relaxed about, well, let's see what the platform has to offer before we take a leap to the next console platform, the next generation of games, and so on. But in terms of this rumor about the PlayStation Portal being able to play games without a PlayStation 5, I actually think it's a really smart move, considering where tech is heading, right? Considering where we're going with cloud gaming, streaming, being able to get people into the ecosystem, like, dare I say, like Microsoft and Xbox has done with you buy a game once, you can play it on all of your devices. That's a really nice feature. Maybe Sony should look at adopting something like that. So I think this is one of those steps that, and I'll talk more about it in a moment, where I think if you enjoy buying games on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 digitally, here's an opportunity for you to take your games with you wherever you go, as long as you've got good internet access, of course. But I think it's a smart move. What else are we saying here? So Raz, exactly, it's great on the Pro. With the update it got lost. Yeah, that's Callisto. It looks fantastic on the Pro. I see you're saying, will GTA 6 get news in November, or do we delay? No, I don't think it's going to get delayed. I don't think it will. I'll be surprised if it does. Never say never. Will we get news in November? I don't know. Rockstar are notorious for releasing information when they're ready, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I think we know we're going to get a fantastic game in GTA 6. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. Therefore, just let them cook. When they're ready, we'll get an update. There's no need to worry about what they're doing at the minute. Corey is saying the need for new hardware will be for those that want to maintain the best gameplay experience as games design and visuals progress. Eventually, games will start to be 30 frames per second. Early on PS5 and PS6 will be necessary to continue gaming at 60 frames per second. Yeah, that's always the case, isn't it? If you want the best gaming experience, you go for the latest tech, the highest specs. But if those that are just happy to play the games on any device, yeah, you can play it on your PS4, your Portal, your PS5, and so on. So let's have a look at this. You can see some of that, I think. So, rumor, PlayStation Portal could be about to get even more compelling, and this is from Push Square. So, it says here, we know Sony's handheld accessory PlayStation Portal has proven an enormous success. Approximately 5% of the PlayStation 5's install base estimated to have purchased the remote play streaming device, and that's just in the US alone. Well, it could be about to get even better, assuming screenshots from Reddit are accurate. Now, a couple of pictures doing the rounds show images of Deliver at All Costs and the Outer Worlds 2 store pages, where it says pre-order to stream and play instantly at release on PlayStation Portal or PS5, and then in brackets, only with PlayStation Plus Premium. And these are the screenshots, and that highlighted bit there is where they've got that disclaimer about only with PlayStation Plus Premium. And then it goes on to say, now we haven't been able to replicate the text on the PlayStation Store for ourselves, but if it's accurate, it would indicate further improvements to Sony's cloud streaming solution. At the moment, you can stream select games directly to your PlayStation 5 with PS Plus Premium, as well as titles from the PS Plus catalog to your PlayStation Portal. The wording here suggests that Sony is plotting a future update where you'll be able to pre-order and purchase games from the PlayStation Store and stream them directly to your PlayStation Portal without ever needing to turn on your PS5 at all. Obviously, the quality of your streaming experience will vary, but we've generally found Sony's solution to be surprisingly competent. It's interesting how the Japanese giant appears to be quietly iterating on this part of its business. The company clearly recognizes the long-term importance of cloud streaming, but it's not trying to force the issue at all. It's just steadily improving on its solution, putting it in a good position to pounce should widespread adoption of this feature ever emerge. Is this something you'd personally take advantage of at all? So that's the first article then, guys. So this is the PlayStation Plus Portal. Let's go back to the game. Now, it's difficult for me because I don't have the PlayStation Portal. But I will be buying it if this feature is going to be true. If this is going to happen, I will be buying a PlayStation Portal as well as the PSVR 2. So Petrov is saying that they're testing it before the handheld is launched. Yeah, that's one of my well, I say it's theory. I think it's common knowledge, isn't it? I think that Sony are kind of doing these little tests, and they're doing these tests, rolling things out bit by bit on the PlayStation Portal, ironing out any kinks and bugs, and then when they eventually launch the handheld, it will be smooth as butter. Corey is saying the same thing happens on PC. At one point, the GTX 1080 was the best GPU you could buy, but it was horrible at ray tracing and 60 FPS. The subsequent 2080 and 3080 and 3090 RT at 60 frames per second became more standard. Yeah, I think the challenge for Sony is going to be people want to. I think the ecosystem's growing, isn't it? You're getting games on PC. You're going to be able to play those PC games on the Xbox hybrid machine and the little handheld device. People are on the PlayStation 5, the Pro, the PS4. The question for Sony is going to be, you've got all these gamers, some are not going to move, some are going to move to the next console generation. The challenge for Sony is, how do they support everybody, and how are they going to bring about mass adoption? It's going to be a slow process. It's not going to be like previous generations where all of a sudden all these games are only coming out onto the PlayStation 6. I don't think any developer is going to do that, really. There's too many gamers on older generational or current gen platforms for them to worry about leaving so many people behind. So I don't think that'll happen. It'll be a case of, if you want the best gaming experience, you got to play it on the PlayStation 6. You want full ray tracing, 60 frames per second. You want whatever version of PSSR kicks in. You want all those bells and whistles and all those features. You've got to experience it on the PlayStation 6, right? Give you an example. Everyone's looking. Well, I say everyone. I know not everyone's looking forward to Red Dead Redemption's 60 frame patch or update or whatever you want to call it, but a lot of people want that. Now imagine in the future Sony had a game where, if you buy this game on the PlayStation 6, it's 60 frames per second, it's 4K ray tracing, lots of features, but actually if you want to play it on the PlayStation 5, half of those features won't be there because the game we're just not going to be able to run it at those kind of specs on the PlayStation 5. So I can see things like that happening. And like with PC, if you want the best experiences, you go for the higher GPUs. Like what you said, Corey, if you want better frames, right? If you want better performance, you buy the higher spec machine. So it'll be a little bit like that, and a slow build-up of people moving from the older gen to the newer gens. Unless, we do get those games that are only PlayStation 6. And I hope we do get a couple, at least, that are only PlayStation 6 to encourage people to move over to the new platform. Sotnist is saying, I will use my Portal a lot more if it happens. Sony definitely needs to keep expanding this stuff for the reasons the article said. Same for possible PC store trophies, etc. And answer to play anywhere, like you said. Yeah, I agree. A feature like this. So I never bought the PlayStation Portal because I don't travel a lot, and if I'm traveling, I'm driving, so I don't catch a train or flights or anything like that. So I don't have a reason to own a PlayStation Portal. Got plenty of TVs in the house. There's never an issue, playing what I want to play. There's never a fight over the TV. So there's no compelling reason for me to own the PlayStation Portal. Plus, you've got to I keep saying tether. You've got to have your PlayStation 5 on and then stream your games from the PlayStation 5 by remote play. I don't know, it's just not attractive to me, that feature. But the fact that if this kicks in, this update, you can now play your PlayStation Portal without turning on the PlayStation 5. You can sit in the garden, chair, relax. All of a sudden, you're playing a game. Again, it's all dependent on your internet speed and that kind of stuff. But it's actually quite desirable. It's got me thinking, you know what? It's actually for 200 odd quid, £200 in the UK. And the handheld's probably not coming out until, again, debatable because there's no official confirmation. But if the PlayStation 6 comes out in 2027, a handheld will probably come out a year later, I think. I doubt they'd come out at the same time. So at least 3 more years before the handheld comes out. So actually, I think I'd enjoy the Portal if this update kicks in for 2 or 3 years. I think that's pretty decent. And I cancelled my PlayStation Premium subscription a while back because I don't really play subscription games, catalog games. I just play a single player game. When I've finished, I'll move on. So, but if I was able to play my digital games, I've got a few, not many. Then I would consider subscribing to the higher tier. It's got me thinking. That's the thing. This has got me thinking about the Portal. Spooktacular Stacy, you're hoping to get the Midnight Black PlayStation Portal for Christmas. Fantastic. I have to say the Midnight Black edition looks quite nice. Yeah, I do like that. I think I'd go for the black version. I do like it. Olamoko, how you doing, buddy? Hope you're doing well. Carl, you got yours off eBay as an open box. They need to blow them out at 150 this Black Friday. Well, if there's a discount, yep, let's hope so. I mean, if you look at the handheld space, I mean, I'm not too familiar with like the Steam Deck and stuff like that. I don't know what those kind of prices are, but I know they're expensive. And the Switch 2, what is it, 450, 500 pounds in the UK, somewhere around that figure. At 200 pounds for a streaming device, and you're saying you can play this current generation quality games like the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 games on your device. That's a pretty good deal. Again, it's all subject to internet and streaming. And I know a lot of people have said, well, games are not great. You got latency, you got lag issues. So it's definitely not for competitive gaming, but it's an option for small. I'd love to play Astrobot, for example, on the Portal. I can imagine myself playing that. Games like that. Maybe Gran Turismo, stuff like that. Corey's saying, I absolutely expect the PlayStation 6 will have exclusive games. I think people misunderstand what believing in generations meant. It meant that while the industry is positioned to support games at all levels, Sony will always have games that are only available for one console, and you will need that console to have access to that game. That's a good point. That's a really good point. I think Sony have always done that. Well, they certainly did it with PlayStation 5. And they had Ratchet and Clank and Demon Souls, right, on launch. Of course, Returnal on launch. I think those were PlayStation 5 only, if I remember correctly. But yeah, definitely those kind of games. Obviously, prior to that, it was you move on from one console generation to the next one, so all your games are only playable on the new console. But yeah, PlayStation 5 had some exclusive games right at the beginning of the generation, and they all they have exclusive games for PlayStation 5. But if they do have that for PlayStation 6, of course people are going to jump in and buy those games and have the platform straight away. But it's the others, right? How'd you get other people on? How'd you get those PlayStation 4 players? How'd you get those guys who've quite happy to stay with the PlayStation 5? No interest in moving into the PlayStation 6 generation until maybe the PS6 Pro comes out, in 5 or 6 years' time. Those are the questions Sony. Well, actually, I say those are the questions Sony needs to answer. Do they? Sony could be happy. Well, these guys are happy playing on the PlayStation 5. As long as they're subbed into PlayStation Plus and they're buying our games, happy days, right? They're in the ecosystem. As that's what these big corporations are looking at, the ecosystem. Carly saying PlayStation 6 needs to get us PlayStation 3 disc support. That will finish Xbox in the console space. Yeah, I think I don't think that'll ever happen in terms of PlayStation 3 disc support. I might be wrong. I hope I am wrong. Fall back compat with every PlayStation disc would be phenomenal, but I just don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately. Corey saying you use your Portal for vacations, use it to play your large library of games. I'm never going to use a handheld outside of hotel Wi-Fi connection when I'm away for work or vacation. Yeah, it's cool that you're using it though. That's what it's there for, isn't it? It's never gonna replace sitting in front of your big screen TV playing a brand new AAA game. But once you've played say you played Yote 2 or 3 times, and you fancy diving in for a couple of levels, a couple of missions, and you're at a loose end, you might sit in front of the TV with the Portal, have a blast. Maybe an hour before bed, you might want to have a run through of a level. I can see myself using it in those kind of examples. I'd never sit there and play hardcore competitive gaming. I'm no good for starters. So if there's any lag, it's going to make it even worse. And I wouldn't dream of playing a brand new AAA game on the portal to start with. For me, it's always the big screen, that kind of experience first, and then maybe a second run through or a third run through later on. So this leak then, it claims Sony's teasing or testing this portal support for cloud streaming, and it's going to allow users to stream via the cloud games to their PlayStation portal, which is a pretty big step from Sony's perspective. They're actually saying now, hey guys, you don't need the PlayStation 5 to play PlayStation 5 games. So that's quite an interesting place to be. And you get access via the PlayStation Plus Premium, so you're going to have to subscribe to that. And it says that, so the feature would reportedly let users stream the digital library titles plus PlayStation Plus games directly to the handheld. So with this feature now, if you think about it from I don't want to say a casual gamer, but if you think of it from a gamer's point of view, right? Someone who's maybe wants to get into the PlayStation ecosystem, or maybe someone who's looking for a new device, a handheld device, and you're going out, young kid, you're going out with your parents or your grandparents, you're going to the shops, you see all these handheld devices, and all of a sudden you've got the PlayStation Portal, any PlayStation 4, I say any, as long as they're in the PlayStation Plus library, or as long as you've downloaded them previously digitally, you're going to be able to play these for £200, maybe even cheaper. Maybe they'll do a sale next year, right? Maybe it'll be 175 or 150 even. And it's that entry point, isn't it? Think of it like this: the Series S, if you like, right? It's an entry level device to get people playing PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 games. So if you've never had a PlayStation and you think, actually, you know what, I might want to give the Portal a try, maybe I'll pick it up. You still got to subscribe, right? You've got to pay for the premium tier. So there's that. But actually, it's a really affordable device for those that want to experience some PlayStation games on the go. Carl, you're saying, let's hope, Corey, they could always monetize the PlayStation 3 via upgrade path, 4K 120 frames. I'd pay for that. I want to see some of those PS3 games come back. I'd definitely love that. Yeah, there's plenty of PlayStation 3 games that I think a lot of people would happily pay for. Yeah, that PlayStation 3, that's a whole different subject there. Corey saying you use your portal to play smaller indie titles. I never play a game like Yote on a small screen, but for games like Absalom or Hollow Knight Silksong, the portal is perfect. Yeah, I agree. And the new God of War, the small game, that's been created in partnership with Santa Monica. I can't remember the name of the studio now, but the Metroidvania God of War game, which was delayed this year, it's coming out in 2026. That game, that type of game, Metroidvania 3D game, that style of game would be perfect for a handheld device. So that's what I'm thinking now. Even Astrobot would be perfect. Maybe even Ratchet and Clank, right? These kind of smaller games, rather than the big AAA games. Yeah, actually, the more I talk about it, the more I'm tempted just to go and order one. But let's wait for Black Friday. Let's see if there's any discounts or sales. Sotnist, you saying, like they say, any portal do in a store. Yeah, any portal will do in a storm. Absolutely. Spooktacular Stacy is saying, I always love to have the PSP handhelds. Unfortunately, Portal is the closest thing we've got for PlayStation right now. Yeah, I think there's a lot of features that PlayStation will probably introduce, or Sony will introduce over the next couple of years, just to, I suppose, to make sure the tech works, so that when they actually eventually release the handheld, it's a much smoother release. There's no major issues. There's no major bugs. I'd be very interested to see what the price is actually of the handheld, and what they would plan to do with the price of the Portal when the handheld does eventually come out. Very interesting to see. And also, is it going to be the same type of mechanics where you can only use the handheld to play some of these PlayStation games if you're subscribed to PlayStation Plus Premium? I would imagine it is. like stream your games and to play your digital games, I would imagine you have to have a PS Plus subscription to be able to do that. I think that's what they might be going for. And I think they're using this to see how many people push back on having to have a subscription to play your digital games on the PlayStation Portal. I think. We'll see. So, PlayStation Plus Portal will have, if this rumor is correct, this update feature. So, one of the positive things is you don't need a PlayStation 5 for this thing to work, right? So you'll be able to play games on the PlayStation Portal. So what it does is it makes the portal more accessible to people who don't have a PlayStation 5, maybe not interested in having a PlayStation 5, because you don't want to have to spend whatever the price is now, £450-500 for a PlayStation 5, and then another 200 pounds or so on a portal. Is crazy, right? And it was considered a companion device. But now the fact that you don't need a PlayStation 5, £200 actually sounds pretty reasonable. So it does make it a lot more affordable to play the PlayStation 4 and 5 games on a handheld device, right? And also you get that portable experience. Like Corey, you mentioned that having to travel around, you used it, when you're away in hotels. It's a great experience for kind of keeping connected with your PlayStation console. So from that perspective, it's great to carry on playing some of your games. And I suppose from Sony's perspective, there's more of an opportunity to drive out the PlayStation Plus subscriptions, right? Maybe more people will sign up, get access to this library of games, play them on the go. So maybe that's another positive thing from I suppose a Sony perspective. Now, I don't know if cloud gaming is convenient. Because I don't really do cloud gaming, and I've said, some people have said in the past that it's okay sometimes, but there is lag, there is latency issues, and so from that perspective, it might not be great. But I suppose it depends on the internet, right? Depends on what speed you've got. Socknist, you're saying the upcoming Lowland game seems like it would be appealing on handheld. Yeah, that looks good. That's got the old From Software and God of War developers on. And there's one of the, I forget the other name of the studio, but it's a real kind of heavy hitter list of developers who are working on that game, and it does give you those very early God of War vibes before they did the God of War 2018 game. There's a lot of those vibes coming from that game. It does look good. I'd like to see more gameplay though. But yeah, it looks excellent. And obviously it's from a console perspective, it's a PlayStation 5 console exclusive. But because it's coming to PC, you'll be able to play it on the next gen hybrid Xbox machine, whatever you want to call that thing, and the Rogue Ally X as well. So essentially, it's coming to everywhere apart from Nintendo Switch. Corey's saying now Ratchet and Clank is a big game screen. Same with Astrobot. Portal games are best with the mechanics are simple, and it doesn't require a lot of menus. Great for a quick hour or two play session. Yeah, I agree with that. A short gaming experience. And maybe it's good for like the old FIFA or EAFC games. Not that I have played them for a while because they're getting a bit stale, to be honest. But I'm keen to give it a shot. Actually, I'm really keen to give it a blast. Razi saying that's definitely a good move for Sony. It makes it its own standalone device and more accessible to a wider audience. Yeah, I agree. I think the fact that you're not required to spend $500, whatever it is, for a PlayStation 5. You can go straight in and buy a Portal as long as you're prepared to subscribe to PlayStation Plus. Then yeah, it makes it very affordable. Sockness, you're saying, I wonder if God of War Metroidvania rumors were actually related to Lowland. That's a good point, actually. That's a very good point. That's an excellent point, actually. I never thought of that. I'll have a look into that. I'm pretty sure that convinced they said it was actually a God of War spin-off title, so it was called God of War something or another. But maybe, who knows? Who knows? It's a good point though. Yeah, I like that. So we're kind of talking about the positives, right? From the PlayStation Portal's perspective, right? We're saying it's a portable device, great. You can take it anywhere, great. No PlayStation 5 required with this new feature if it kicks in, or whenever it kicks in. We know it's going to happen. There's a low price point, good kind of barrier to entry for people who don't have the console. You can play your digital games on the handheld and the PlayStation 5, which is great. So, what are the negatives then? What's the negative thing about this Portal having this update whenever Sony switches it on? What could go wrong with this update? I think I mentioned it a couple of times. I don't play cloud gaming. I've only tried. I've tried a couple of PlayStation 3 games via when I had the PlayStation Plus premium subscription, and I didn't enjoy not playing natively. It wasn't terrible, but there was latency or there were delays in input, and I didn't. It wasn't a perfect experience. So that would just, I think it would piss me off a little bit, because I do expect perfection when I play games. Not necessarily in. I don't expect games to be 100% bug free. I know there's going to be bugs in games, but if I'm playing a game natively local on my PlayStation 5, I expect the game to run smoothly. I expect it to be perfect. I want to have a good gaming experience. But I know I'm not going to get that if there is potential for latency, input lag, stuttering. Yeah, so that I think might be a concern for some people, with completely relying on a cloud-based device. What happens if the systems go down, it crashes, or there's, it's happened before, hasn't it? Sony servers have gone down for a long time. They've been hacked or whatever. If the system goes down, your device is completely useless, because you can't download any games onto the PlayStation Portal. Everything's offline. So it's an offline device. Sorry, it needs the systems to be online for you to play, so you cannot play anything offline. So that's a concern, isn't it? If something happens to Sony servers or the game servers and you cannot access PlayStation Plus, the device is worthless then, isn't it? In that instance. Carly saying they should bundle it with PlayStation Plus subscription. The lag could be worse. So you go from games on Amazon Fire Game Pass and it wasn't too bad. Okay. That's interesting. That's interesting then. So bundling sounds good. I mean, is there a case where, let's say you buy the Portal, and this is about Sony bringing more players into the ecosystem. So is there a case where Sony says, look, tell you what, we're practically giving away the Portal, right? It's 125 quid, 150 quid. We're giving it away, right? And you get 6 months worth of PlayStation Plus premium, but you've got to pay for the other 18 months. You kind of get 2 years worth of Game Pass. You get 2 years of PlayStation Plus premium. You pay for two years, and they give you 6 months for free. That kind of thing. That would be good. So you've got a new customer straight into the PlayStation ecosystem for 2 years, enjoying the games, and now it's up to Sony to release good games, which we know they do, right? And there's loads of good games on the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 on PlayStation Plus catalog, and it gives people a chance to get into the ecosystem, enjoy those games, and hopefully the idea is that you convert some of those customers over to console buyers, or continue subscribing to the PlayStation Plus Portal. Maybe then they jump over to the handheld when it launches in 2, 3, 4 years time. So there's an opportunity there. Petrov is saying, or 50% off on PlayStation Plus Premium if you buy a Portal. That's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah. That'll make it really cheap, wouldn't it? It's a good deal. Good offer. 50% off. I mean, they're already doing, is it 25% off Black Friday? If that kind of period where if you're not a subscriber, if you haven't got it, you can get 25% off. So why not knock off another 25% if you buy a Portal? You know, maybe they should do that when the PlayStation 6 comes out and the handheld, where, hey, look, if you buy this, you get 25% off or 50% off, or you get 6 months free. Or I mean, Xbox used to do it all the time, didn't they? It didn't work with Game Pass. You know, you can buy it for £1 or you get 6 months free. They used to do all these things. I mean, I got 3 years worth of Game Pass for free just because I signed up for broadband with different providers. You get 2 years with one provider, you get another year with someone else, and it's a way to get people into the ecosystem. I get it. It's a good way to get people in. But you got to have compelling games to keep them hooked, and maybe you've got to. So I cancelled my PlayStation Plus premium subscription because I wasn't taking advantage of all the games on there. So I just play one game at a time, or two at most. So it's not good for people like me. But if you play lots of games, then there's an advantage to it. And if you like to take, if you want to take your gaming on the go, it's a good reason then to have a device like the Portal where you can actually use PlayStation Plus's catalog of games and enjoy those games. So it kind of makes sense if you are into lots of different games and you're going to invest in a handheld device. So I get the point. And offering a bundle is a good idea too. Spectacular Stacy, you're saying, from what I remember from having the white Portal, it dropped more from PlayStation 5 cloud gaming. See, with the requirement for not having a PlayStation 5, everything's going to be cloud based, and it's all going to be streamed from the cloud. So it's all down to Sony service, Sony side of things, and of course your own internet connection. But I mean, I've got to be honest. Obviously, I talk about gaming news quite a lot, leaks and reports and stuff like that. But I don't often hear or see or find reports where people are complaining that the Sony servers and the cloud streaming is terrible. There's nothing coming out with red flags everywhere saying the streaming service are dreadful. It's not playable. I don't hear any of that, to be honest. Maybe there's not enough people that do it. Maybe there's not enough people that game or stream via cloud on Sony's platform. But it's not making the headlines. There's no red flags anywhere. So there's no reason to doubt that Sony doesn't have the infrastructure in place to be able to do this. Otherwise, they wouldn't be testing these types of features on the PlayStation Portal when it does eventually land. Carl, you're saying they used to give free Xboxes here in the States with Verizon contracts on phones and TVs. Yeah, I remember these kind of, I don't want to say gimmicks, but these kind of ways to entice gamers in. They used to, back in the days, offer really good discounts on PlayStation 4 when you signed up to, Sky TV or cable TV back in the day. And then they moved on from the hardware and went more into subscription services. So you get Netflix or Amazon or I don't actually remember a PlayStation Plus subscription on any of these services, but definitely Game Pass. I remember seeing that everywhere. But I've also seen the PlayStation VR 2 on offer with kind of new phone deals with EE, Orange or Vodafone, stuff like that. So there are ways to get people into the ecosystem. I think this one's a decent way for Sony with the Portal. But of course, it's dependent on the strength of the internet and what Sony service are like with kind of being stable and consistent. I think the other thing about the Portal is you have to be subscribed. And I know not everyone's going to like the idea of subscribing, but I mean, is that such a bad thing? If you're gonna subscribe anyway, if you're already subscribed to PlayStation Plus Premium, does it entice you to get the Portal? If you're not subscribed, like I'm not subscribed at the moment, but all of a sudden, it's got me thinking. Maybe, I don't mind subscribing to the premium tier if I can then play some of my digital games and the games in the library that I wouldn't normally play on the Portal. I don't mind doing that because I'm not playing a AAA game on it. We've kind of said it's mainly smaller games, indie games, stuff like that. And I wouldn't mind trying smaller games. In my case, I wouldn't mind trying like Astrobot or Ratchet and Clank on the Portal. But that's got me thinking. So I think there is a case where actually, yes, people are going to look at it and think, I don't want to pay a subscription fee. But actually, there's a case for new gamers coming into PlayStation's ecosystem, an affordable price for the Portal, an affordable subscription. You get access to all the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 games in that library with games dropping in and dropping out, right? And you can purchase games for your account and you can play them as well on the platform. So it sounds quite promising, I think. Sotnisty saying Sony bought Gaikai so long ago. Yeah, this could be the final. Yeah, it could be. They bought that years ago, and even though they implemented elements of it a long time ago, they never really went to town on it because their existing model works, right? You release a console and you release games on that platform, and then the following generation you release a new console and you move on to that generation. So behind the scenes, Sony's doing all the things that Microsoft is doing, right? So all this stuff with everything that Xbox did with the Xbox One generation and their absolutely disastrous presentation of the Xbox One with Don Matrick and stuff like that, right? All that stuff, we're seeing it all happen now. All the console platforms are doing it. The difference was that the way Microsoft and Xbox introduced it was they just didn't read the room. And all this stuff about cloud technology, cloud streaming, subscription services, they're all happening now, right? And even on Sony's platform, they're happening and they're kind of phasing these bits. They're phasing them in bit by bit. When they need to step on the gas, when they need to say, right, we're going to be doing cloud streaming, we're going to be going full press with the PlayStation Plus subscription, we might drop games in day and date, or we might not. We might drop small games in, like PlayStation All Stars was going to be a flop. They dropped it into PlayStation Plus. They're going to do these things whenever they need to, but they've got the infrastructure behind the scenes, and that's important for them to keep moving with the times. You never know what's going to happen in the future, right? If whatever Microsoft is trying with their hybrid machine, if that works, and if people love it, I mean, just thinking out the box, you've got to thinking out the box. That's a good one, that. So just thinking out the box, you've got this new hybrid machine. I'm digressing here, but bear with me. You've got this hybrid machine, which is going to play Xbox games. It's going to play Steam games, right? PC Steam games. And you're going to have PlayStation games on there too, via Steam, via PC. And I remember as a kid, I used to think, this is before I got consoles, just a kid dreaming to play a Sega Mega Drive back in the day and a Super NES. So I never had one when I was growing up. So I was dreaming, look, imagine one day in the future there was a machine that could play every game. And isn't that what Microsoft is doing here? Isn't this like the device that's going to play, apart from Nintendo games, it's going to play your PlayStation games, it's going to play your PC games, and it's going to play your Xbox games? Doesn't that sound like a good device? Regardless of the price, but anyway, I've digressed. Sony's got infrastructure behind the scenes, things like Gaikai and other technologies that they have built into the Sony system. They've got everything in place in case the day comes where, console sales are flatlining. They're dropping off. People are not as invested in consoles. There's a lot of people that actually don't care about whether you play on PlayStation or Xbox or Nintendo. They just want great games. If those kind of days come up in the future and the console sales are not hitting 100 million, they're not even hitting 80, they're not hitting 70, they're doing Xbox numbers like 30 million, 35 million, then maybe Sony says, actually, you know what, let's switch it over. Let's release games into the cloud, onto PlayStation Plus. And maybe that's the future. Who knows? But they've got that if they ever need to use it. And I suppose it's always good to have, isn't it? A backup. I suppose from a company's perspective. So Spooktacular Stacy saying the cloud gaming is better than remote play. I've got to be honest, have I ever used remote play? I don't think I've ever played remotely. I don't play on my phone. I don't play on tablet, laptop. I don't play on any of those devices. The only thing I've tried is a little bit of cloud gaming via Sony's system, playing those PlayStation 3 games on PlayStation Plus Premium. What are you guys in the rest of you in the chat? Is cloud gaming better than remote play, or is remote play better than cloud gaming? I don't know, honestly. Sotnist is saying Sony bought Gaikai so long ago. Time to pay off. It is. I think it is. Petrov is saying Sony has a bigger base and this is a step further. They have got a massive player base. You're considering they've got, what is it, 50 million PlayStation 4 users, give or take. They've got 80 million on the PlayStation 5. It's a big user base of gamers. So we talked about offline play. You can't do it on the portal. We talked about input, latency, lag issues, connection issues, right? You can't really play competitive games, I think. I'm guessing, if you've got a portal, can you play competitive games in a good way? Given that there are maybe latency and connection issues sometimes. Carly's saying you'll find out soon. You have an LG TV with an Xbox app and Game Pass. You'll compare it to the portal. Let me know. Let me know how it goes. Let me know how you find out what the services are like. Which one's performing well? What's lag like? Is it responsive on both Xbox and Game Pass? Sorry, and with PlayStation Portal. So Corey's saying remote play is definitely better than cloud streaming. Hang on a sec, guys. It's getting hot in here. It's getting hot. It's like an oven in here. I need better ventilation in this room. So remote play is better than cloud. I would have thought remote play is better because it's local, isn't it? If you're playing locally. If you're playing remote play off your PlayStation 5 and you're in the house or even locally in the area. I'm only guessing. No competitive games via streaming or remote play. Yeah, it's definitely going to be smaller games, smaller experiences. I tell you what the big one is for me, and I've talked about this before on the previous episodes. Razzie saying it all depends on the quality of your internet services. Good point. But even if you've got good internet connection, right? Even if you've got, very, very high speed internet, high speed broadband, maybe you've got a gig, right? Download. You're still dependent on Sony's side of things, right? With cloud gaming. That again, it's just that niggling thing in the back of your mind. You're still reliant on someone else's servers. Very easy to say for me. I haven't actually experienced it myself, so I guess I'm taking your lead from it. Sotnisty saying remote play is nicer, especially if you do it from a pro, but cloud is more practical. No, I forgot to leave the PlayStation 5 in rest mode. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Corey saying co-op games are fine, but offline competitive games are not good. Online competitive games, sorry. Yeah, I'd imagine online, any competitive game would be an issue, especially with the slightest of input lag, the slightest of connection issues. I quite like the idea of just not having to worry whether your PlayStation 5 is on rest mode or not, whether you forgot to switch it on. The idea of just switching on the portal, bang, you're up and running, play whatever you want, as long as you subscribe. I think that's quite good. But the one thing that puts me off, and this is the biggest thing, more than the lag, more than the connection stuff, the big thing for me is that the PlayStation portal will play your PlayStation Plus premium games and your digital games that you've downloaded, right? It will play those games via the cloud onto your device. Great for people who buy digital games, great for people who have the PlayStation portal. And it encourages you, I suppose, to go digital. We've had this discussion before. It encourages you to go digital, which is not a problem, right? I've said this before. If you want to play digital, that's absolutely fine. You're still buying your digital games. But for me, the concern is, as someone who I like to collect physical games, I like physical media, right? I've got a small collection you can see over my left shoulder. It's only a small collection, but I've only started during the PS4, the end of the PS4 generation, and I like it. I like collecting games. So the concern for me is this is another thing which gives an advantage to those that buy digital games. You can now play your digital games you've purchased, as long as you've got your subscription, as long as you're paying for PlayStation Premium. You can play your PS4 and PS5 games on the handheld. Great, it's a great feature. It's fantastic. And I mean, I suppose you can still play your physical games via remote play, but it's attractive, isn't it, to buy it digitally? That's my point. The attraction is there. And what happens in the future when the PlayStation Plus PC launcher is launched? All of a sudden, you buy your digital game or you subscribe to PlayStation Plus Premium, just like Xbox, you can play your games on your handheld, on your PC, and on your console. And you only pay for them once. That's quite attractive for digital games. It's another thing that goes against physical media. And that's my only negative thing, really, I suppose, when I come to think about it. I don't know. It's another thing that's just going to chip away at the physical media market, and we're going to head to this phase where we're just not making digital games physical games anymore. They're just collector's editions, limited runs, and so on. Which I'm digressing from the discussion, but this was my concern, I suppose. So Spooktacular Stacey saying updates might have improved that you had pre-ordered Portal day one. Yeah, I think the Portal's had quite a few updates since it launched. I'm hoping to pick it up. I'm so tempted. I am so tempted. If there's an offer during Black Friday, I will get it. I might PlayStation VR2 was my this year's gift to myself. Maybe the Portal is accompanying the PSVR 2. Corey is saying, I have full business class internet and you're always behind in competitive multiplayer games. You can absolutely feel the difference between playing native and playing from a stream. Just stay away from competitive gaming. That's a good point. Full business class internet. What speed's that then, Corey? What speed is business class internet? Is that a gig? A gig or more? Razzie saying, you're in New York visiting your girlfriend. My PlayStation 5 is in New Jersey. I take it NJ, New Jersey. Usually I don't have a problem with connecting to remote play, but if her network is acting up, it sucks. Or if mine at home is acting up, it sucks. I can't connect this whole weekend. It keeps saying network too slow. Here is fine. I'm not at home to reset my modem. Yeah, that you know what? Those kind of issues would really grate on me. That kind of stuff would just that would drive me nuts. Knowing that because sometimes when you're in the mood to play, you want to just play for an hour or two. But the frustration really does kick in if you're in another part of the country or another part of the city and you can't go home to reset your modem or your console. Petrov is saying, sorry, in the future there will be no more physical games. Yeah, it's going to be. I wouldn't say there's going to be no more physical games. I just think that there'll just be limited runs. You know, if the next, whatever PlayStation 6 or 7 game comes out, they'll probably make a set number of games, and once they're gone, they're gone. That's it. They're not making any more. The rest of them will be digital purchases. And Corey's saying you doubt that physical games will ever disappear completely. They still make vinyl records. It may not be as readily available in the future, but physical media will always be. Yeah, I agree. It'll just be really, really reduced numbers. They won't make as many games released on physical. It'll just be limited runs of these new games whenever they come out. It's more than a gig. You can download a full game in less than 5 minutes. That's fantastic. Mine's a gig, and typically it's okay, but I've never had any issues with kind of multiplayer gaming or online gaming, but I'd like to try cloud gaming more, but it wasn't great when I did it with the PlayStation 3 games. I think you can tell it just feels a little bit clunky sometimes. Sotonist, are you replying to? Oh, Raz, yeah, you wanted to play some Callisto Protocol on Halloween, but you couldn't. So just this Portal thing. Then I think overall it sounds like a really promising move from Sony's part. It sounds like it's the right thing to do. I don't think anyone's worried about console sales. What are we not 5 years into the generation? The PlayStation 5 is selling absolutely fine, and it will continue to sell. And we can probably expect some cuts at some point, especially as we head towards PlayStation 6, confirmation, spec releases, and all that kind of stuff. So we'll start to see the reduction of prices at some point, not to the levels that we've seen in the past, where PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3 consoles have been reduced, but we will see some reductions in the future. So the Portal having this update whenever it kicks in, I don't think it's going to be an issue for future sales of the PlayStation 5. Like we've kind of discussed, if you want to play that big AAA game, you're going to play it on your console. You're going to play it in front of your big screen TV or monitor. And if you want a device for the go, right now, for £200, the PlayStation Portal seems pretty decent, especially when this update kicks in. And it feels like Sony is testing these little features every now and again on the Portal. Like, we had these games that are running in low power mode, and some of the Sony first party games have now had this feature kicked in. So when you do run it on a handheld device, it changes resolution to 30 frames from 60, and it drops the visual output from 4K to like 1080p. Is that to maintain a longer battery life? Possibly, yeah, possibly. So it doesn't take up and consume so much power. Could it be an update for the PlayStation future handheld? Yeah, probably. There's probably some kind of connection there, but it's good to see Sony doing all these little changes and upgrades to the Portal. It's still relevant. It's still a good device. People are having a blast with it. I think the capture rate is 5% from that report. So 5% of the PlayStation 5 owners have it, and it has been a companion device, so more like an accessory. So it's not felt like we have to have it because you've got the PlayStation 5. But I think now that whenever the update kicks in, it's going to feel much more like a device that you might want, regardless of whether you got PlayStation 5 or not. And it's going to open the door for more people to hopefully take advantage of it. Raz, you're going to get your girlfriend a PlayStation 5 for Christmas. Good idea. Great idea. Well, that's really good, Corey, that business class. So you can be working, your wife's working, your kids are downloading and streaming movies, and it still takes less than 5 minutes to download games. What's the speed of your business class? I'm going to look into that. But that sounds really, really good. So I think overall the feeling is that it's quite a positive thing that PlayStation's doing if this update kicks in over the next few months. I mean, it's once seen as a companion device, right? An accessory, but it won't be anymore if this update kicks in. So very exciting. Sax Max, how you doing, buddy? Hope you're doing well. So Corey, you've played games on a Japanese server and have had just as good a connection as the local people. That sounds pretty good. That sounds really good, actually. So I think that's the first topic wrapped up. I think that's quite a nice way to start the podcast. Pretty positive. I don't think there's any controversy there. I think this update, when it kicks in, is not going to impact PlayStation 5 consoles, and it gives the Portal a chance to stand on its own 2 feet and have a chance to sell it itself. Gives people a chance to play games on the go for a couple of £100. Yeah, so I think overall, I think it's a really positive move when it kicks in. So the next topic is about. Here we go. Let's have a look at the topic screen. So there we go. Will the PlayStation 5 outsell the PlayStation 4? Will it do that? And there's a few things to consider during this part of the podcast. So will the PlayStation 5 outsell the PS4? Corey saying it's a Verizon business class. Your work pays for the package since your home is considered a remote office. Oh, that's brilliant. That's fantastic. Well, the way the internet's working now, every year it's getting faster and faster. Every year there's new packages coming out. So hopefully we'll be in a space where actually, 5 to 10 gigs is just standard, normal. Hope that's the case. I've got 1 gig. That's pretty decent. It's very affordable. Prices are going down all the time. But they're coming out with new ones. Are coming out with like 5 gig and 10 gig. But they're a little bit expensive at the moment in the UK. So just avoiding that for now. When the price is right, I think people will jump on it. So will the PlayStation 5 outsell the PlayStation 4? So we've got a couple of things to consider here. Two main things to get your thinking cap on here. The first one, obviously, we all know GTA 6 is coming out next year. And GTA 6 is a system seller. It will shift consoles. And the other thing to consider is the emerging markets that Sony has been working in. There's a big impact on the console markets in those regions, especially in China, where Sony's finally managed to, I don't want to say crack open the market, but they've actually made a lot of headway in the China market. And that's a massive, massive market for PlayStation and for PlayStation and Sony. So the PlayStation 4, I've got some facts that I've pulled out from the internet. So approximately the PlayStation 4 sold just shy of 120 million units. I think it was around 117 million units. And I took this from VGC and VG Charts. Early 2025, the PlayStation 5 had sold around 80 million units around the world. And this is from different sources: Sakana, Tech Radar, Insider Gaming, and VG Charts. So on a month-by-month comparison, so we're looking at the exact same months for both PlayStation and PlayStation 5. There's a couple of different conflicting reports. So on the one hand, some sources are saying that the PlayStation 5 is slightly ahead of where the PlayStation 4 was. On other reports, it's saying the PlayStation 5 is about 1.2 million units behind the PlayStation 4 on a like-by-like basis. So it's pretty damn close either way. And I just want to explore whether the PlayStation 5 has an opportunity to surpass 120 million console sales. And we all know that PlayStation 5 had a difficult start, right? You know, what did we have? We had the console launch in 2020, and we went straight into COVID. We had chip shortages, supply chain shortages. We had obviously the pandemic. We had scalpers buying pretty much every console left, right, and center, and doubling the price, sometimes trebling the price on like eBay and secondhand marketplaces, and people just couldn't find a PlayStation 5. But that didn't affect the sale, because the sale still counted for PlayStation, because they sold the unit even though they sold it to scalpers. But it prevented people from buying the actual console and buying software to support. And then we had leadership changes at Sony as well during this generation, right? They've also changed their strategy from all out every studio live service games to now one or two studios will make live service and the others will focus back onto what they're good at doing, which is single player games. So lots of different factors impacting the early momentum that the PlayStation 5 had. Petrov is saying maybe depends for GTA 6 release and possible PS5 bundle. Yes. Yeah, that's going to be massive. The PS5 bundles with GTA 6, that is going to be huge. That will move units. Corey is saying, I wouldn't consider my internet service affordable, but looking at the 5 gig business class service, it seems appropriate for a streamer or someone who uses a lot of bandwidth. 5 gig business. I'd love to have 5 gig. I think the 1 gig in the UK, I think, is affordable. 1 gig in the UK is about 25 quid a month. I think that's, I don't want to speak out of turn for, you know, people's finances are personal. Everyone's got different circumstances, but 25 quid a month, I think that's decent. I think that's pretty affordable. Might not be for everybody. But 25 quid, I think, is pretty decent for 1 gig in the UK. You can go a little bit lower. So you can go for half a gig and you can get that for like £12.50, £13. But I think 25 gigs pretty decent. So anyway, PlayStation 4, when it launched, a bit tricky because it came off the back of PlayStation 3, which had a horrendous start, but gathered momentum towards the end. But the PlayStation 4 benefited from just real consistent output from PlayStation Studios. So the PlayStation 4 started off the back of a difficult PlayStation 3 era. Sony was doubling down on just what they were good at because they needed to bounce back. They made great single player games from their first party studios. They had good leadership across the studios, across the business during the PS4 era. Good presentation, good showcase. Kind of put the nail in the coffin for the Xbox showcase. Good first party studios. Had good second party, good third party relationships, good exclusive content. There just seems to be that momentum, that synergy between all the PlayStation 4 games coming out, whether it was third party, whether it was exclusive, first party stuff. It just felt right. Everything was ticking, right? They were knocking it out the park every time. And it was pretty much banger after banger on PlayStation 4. And it's certainly as we got towards the mid and the end of the console generation. And with the PlayStation 5 currently around 40 million units behind the PlayStation 4, how is Sony going to narrow that over the next 2 to 3 years, maybe 4 years, maybe a little bit longer? Petrov, you said bundles, right? GTA 6 bundles. I think that's going to be huge. Sotnist, he's saying for the masses, this gen is really just starting with current gen only games like Battlefield 6 and GTA 6. Yeah, Sony only dropped PlayStation 4 support for some of their, in fact, for all of their games. They've just dropped PlayStation 4 support. I think it was either earlier this year or the end of last year. But having said that, Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is still available on PlayStation 4. It will be when it comes out. So PlayStation 4 came out in 2013, I think, right? So 12 years later, we still have that console being supported. And that's fine. It's not a problem. But it just goes to show some games are still, I would say some games are not fully true this generation, right? Are games being held back? Yeah, in some way, shape or form, they would be by older generation consoles and platforms. But 12 years PlayStation 4 we've had. So in theory, if the PlayStation 5 came out in 2020, we're probably still going to be supporting it until 2032 at the very earliest. Not the very latest, the very earliest. I think we'll be supporting the PlayStation 5 until 2035. So another 10 years. That's my prediction. Petrov, you've got 250 megabytes for $10. I think that's decent, isn't it? 250 megabytes for $10. $10 is a reasonable price. Sotnist, you're saying like when that college football game being current gen only caused a spike. Yeah, I think games that are only this generation will cause a spike. It will force people to invest in the game or jump ship to the platform because they're not going to be able to play it on the previous generation. I think a lot of that, we're seeing a lot of that with PlayStation 4. Some people are still thinking GTA 6 is coming to PlayStation 4. It's not. And when they realize it's only going to be on this generation consoles, you know, what if you love playing GTA and you play on PC, what are you going to do? You're going to wait a year or two? You might be okay with it. Or you might think, you know what, screw it, I'm going to get an Xbox or I'm going to get a PlayStation and I'm going to play GTA 6 there. And when it comes to PC, I'll buy it on there as well. A lot of people are going to do that. So I think with it only coming to Xbox and PlayStation, people are going to pick up these platforms. We will see a spike, especially on PlayStation. Sax Max, you're saying, yes, PlayStation 5 sales can surpass PlayStation 4. We still have so many great games coming to PlayStation 5. GTA 6, Wolverine, possibly a Venom game, Phantom Blade Zero, Tides of Annihilation. Great games you mentioned there. Great games. Saros. Don't forget Saros is coming out. Right? We've got that coming out early. Was it March? I think March 2026. We've got Resident Evil coming out next year. There's seriously so many good games coming out. Intergalactic. Yes, I forgot Intergalactic. Thanks, Raz. GTA 6 is going to sell a lot of PlayStation 5s. Yeah, I think it's going to be absolutely... It's going to be a lot of people off work when that comes out. It's going to be a lot of people... There are a lot of places that are just not functioning quite right when GTA 6 comes out. So the key drivers then, right? The key drivers that's going to push the PlayStation 5 to outsell the PlayStation 4. So the obvious one, and we've all spoke about it, the obvious one is great games, right? We've all mentioned GTA 6, and it's those kind of blockbuster games that are really going to shift the console. And I think I'm just trying to think the last game that I called a system seller, I would say probably when I saw God of War 2018. But you see, that came out on the PlayStation 4, right, at the end of the console generation. But if Sony had said, you know what, God of War Ragnarok, when you first saw it, 2018, God of War Ragnarok, here's a trailer, here's a gameplay trailer. It's not being released in 2018. We're going to release it in 2020, and it's going to be PlayStation 5 exclusive only. You know, we would have seen so many more consoles sell. And I think there's not many games that I would say are out and out system sellers that have humongous followings. I think GTA 6 is one of those. That's going to make people jump from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 6. PlayStation 5. It's going to make people literally go out. They're going to get a console and they're going to enjoy it. They're going to pick one of these bundles up when it comes out. When GTA was delayed from 2025 to 2026, right? Sony referenced it as particularly impactful on their financial report because that's how much of a dent it's made in their predictions, in their budget for this fiscal year, for this quarter. Right? It's pretty obvious we're going to get GTA 6 bundles. It's pretty obvious, right? But leaks suggest that these things are going to happen. There's going to be a PlayStation 5 Pro and a PlayStation 5 bundle for GTA 6, and I think they're going to sell millions of these bundles. Right now, you've got people enjoying games on PlayStation 4, which is fantastic. Great console. I love my PlayStation 4. But when you realize you're not going to be able to play GTA 6 on PlayStation 4, straight away you're going to think, right, let's get a PlayStation, right? The PlayStation 5 Pro, is that going to be the only place where you're going to be able to play it 4K 60 for GTA 6? I think it might be. It might be. So again, people are going to be tempted to maybe pay a little bit more, get the PlayStation 5 Pro. Maybe they're going to be happy on the PlayStation 5. Either way, they're going to level up their console, right? So I think having big blockbuster games, and it's not only GTA 6. You know, if you're going to be thinking, right, I'm going to get, it's time to finally move from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5. So what am I going to get? Well, if I get the PlayStation 5, I'm going to play Wolverine. I'm going to play Saros Intergalactic. We've got a whole list of games here. You guys have mentioned Phantom Blade, possibly Venom, right? As well as GTA 6. It's you got Crimson Desert coming out early next year. Resident Evil, Neo 3, right? It's insane the amount of games that we've got coming out. But these are the decisions you're going to be thinking, right? I'm going to get all these games that are going to be PlayStation 5 only, perhaps. And certainly GTA 6 is. So I think people will be looking at it and thinking, what else can I play if I'm going to get my next console? So I think these big games are going to have a massive impact on taking the PlayStation console sales from 80 million to, so they're on 80 million now. I would say easily over 100 million. So over 20 million consoles are going to sell next year by the end of 2026 and get to 100 million at least. Yote, yeah, not forgetting Yote Petrov. We've got Yote as well that they could enjoy. So we've got GTA 6, got that. So we've penciled that in, and we've got the other big games coming out, which is great. Okay, so that's fantastic. I think the other thing that we need to have a look at is, I mentioned at the start, these emerging markets, right? We've got opportunities for Sony with projects in Asia. They've got projects, especially in China. And from the reports that I was looking at, PlayStation 5 sales in China are already ahead of PlayStation 4 sales. So PS5 sales of consoles are selling twice as fast in China than the PS4 sales. And China represents a huge market for Sony. I'll tell you what helps in not only in China, but in all these emerging markets, right? Sony's got, that's it, Petrov. Hero, they've got hero projects, right? They've got hero projects in China, in India, Korea, Southeast Asia, Middle East and Africa. They've got these hero projects where they support multiple development teams with resources, with just that know-how of how to create game, how to put things together, financial support, marketing support. And the deals are that, you know, you'll release your game as a console exclusive, but we'll take it to PC as well. And so they've got partnerships going on, these hero projects. And it's because Sony is supporting a local developer. If you're local in that country, it just gives you another reason to buy into that studio. You know, they're one of our studios. They're a local team. I'm going to buy that game. I'm going to support that studio. There's a lot of that as well sometimes, especially, as I said, these are emerging markets. You want to see businesses and teams do well in your own country. It's prosperous for people who work there. And not only that, if you're into gaming, you want to support your local teams, right? You want to support your local development team. So there's a piece of that to it as well. It's another reason for people to invest in that studio. Razzie saying you're hyped for the supposed Venom game. Your favorite comic character of all time. You love Wolverine too, but Venom is your number one. Yeah, I want to see how Insomniac game tie everything together. I want, I thought personally, I thought Spider-Man 2 was excellent, brilliant game. There's a lot of nonsense people say about the game. It might not be as strong stories wise as Spider-Man 1, but technically it's a freaking awesome game. Absolute brilliant. I want to see how they tie this together, with Miles Morales, Spider-Man 1 and 2. They've already got Venom in the game. How's Venom going to connect to that universe? Because there is going to be a Spider-Man 3. Maybe they'll swing back like that. Maybe they'll connect it all together in Spider-Man 3. But yeah, Venom's going to be a good game. I'm really excited for that. Corey, you're saying, like I said, I don't think the PlayStation 5 needs to outsell PS4. The question is, when prices don't drop to 300 or 249, how many people who only bought a PS4 when it was that price will pay the 400 or 349? Yeah, good point. But I think the price factor is big. But I think there's a couple of things happening with Sony, like the Wolverine game, GTA 6. Big year next year, 2026. It's a massive year. It's an opportunity for Sony to, from a business perspective, capitalize on keeping the console at a high price, release what is a system seller, go the whole year, hold the prices as they are, and then as we get to next year's Black Friday, Christmas sales, then we'll start to see the incremental price reductions end of 2026 going into 2027, because there's no way, unless I've got this all wrong, there's no way Sony launches the PlayStation 6 at more than £700, right? £600 to £700. It's absolute maximum. Personally, I think it'll be around 600, but they cannot have the PlayStation 5 Pro and the PS5 at those prices. So they're going to have to find a balance between these pricing. And I think next year we'll see the PS5 and the Pro hold its price right the way through the year until we get to next holiday, right? Next winter. And that way we've had about 6 months of GTA 6 being out in the wild. We've got Wolverine launching, right? So maybe we will get some PlayStation 5 bundles and accessories for Wolverine. But I think that'll be a good time, or maybe just after, maybe early February. But we will see a price reduction. I don't think we're ever going to get 249 and 300. Certainly not for a while. But I can certainly see it go to like £400 and £500 for the Pro or something, or £550 for the Pro. We will see those, and when those prices start to kick in, then we'll see a bigger uptake. But I think initially, what Sony's going to rely on is the big, your Wolverines of this world, your Crimson Deserts, Resident Evil, Saros, but GTA 6, because that is a system seller. So I think they're going to rely on that to push the console sales through. Swing back, pun intended. So, and I think I mentioned it earlier. What the other thing we're going to see this generation is we've got the PlayStation 4, which is, what did I say, 12 years old? Something like that, right? 2013s. Yeah, so 12 years, and we're kind of still supporting the PlayStation 4 generation. That the PS5 life cycle, it came out in 2020. And I know we had disruption at the start of 2020, 2021, 2022. It makes sense from Sony's perspective to keep supporting the PS5. It's going to have over 100 million gamers on it by next year, by the end of next year, give or take. And even when the PlayStation 6 console comes out, we're still going to support the PlayStation 5 console. A lot of people have already mentioned it, that it hasn't felt like the PS5 generation has really just started. As in, it's only just started recently. We've had so many disruptions. So I think there's more of a case to keep the generation going for as long as possible, whilst introducing the PS5 and handheld and other kind of accessories and consoles. But that's another reason why I think the PlayStation 5 will outsell the PS4, because it will have a longer tail there'll be a longer console generation, and we will see those reductions in prices. When the PlayStation 6 comes out in, let's say, 2027, that's what's been reported, right? If it comes out in 2027, fast forward to 2028, 2029, the PS5 is not going to be 500 plus. It'll be down to 400, 350, maybe even 300 by the time we hit another 3 or 4 years down the line. Maybe that's totally wrong. Maybe the prices around the world globally are not going to support that. But I'd like to think 2 or 3 years into the PlayStation 6 console generation, the PS5 drops significantly to allow people into the ecosystem. Like I said, might be wrong, but we don't know what's going to happen in 3 or 4 years' time. But the idea of a long PlayStation 5 console generation is realistic, and I think we'll be supporting this at least until 2033, 34, maybe even 2035. Sotnisty saying, bring back the $130 console like the PlayStation 2 Slim. That, unfortunately, may not ever happen again. Those kind of days, I think, are long gone. Unless, like we say, we've got the handheld, the Portal, right? We've got the Portal out there in the marketplace. The Portal is 200 right now. They could do that for 150. They could even drop it to like 99 quid in 3 or 4 years' time. It could happen to get people into the platform, into the ecosystem. Saxmax, since you're from the UK, have you been required to verify your age to play online? I am from the UK. Good guess. Good guess. What gave it away? I have not been asked to verify my age to play online at all. Just trying to think back. The only game I've played online is Battlefield, and I don't remember ever verifying my age for that game. What did I read somewhere? YouTube's changing stuff around. YouTube is changing stuff for content creators around age verification, and also for content that's shared. So if games are graphic, there's different levels of verification required. I think I read something about GTA 6 requiring, I don't know if it was age verification. There was something about GTA 6. Maybe it was age verification. I could see something like that happening, I can see something like that happening with GTA 6. Corey saying, by the end of the generation, the base PS5 will be 349 400. The Pro will be 549 600. The PS6 will be 649, maybe even 6. Sorry, Pro will be 549 500. Not I think 2026, the prices pretty much remain the same. You might get a deal Black Friday, you might get 50 quid off. Lucky if we get 100 quid off, but the prices are going to be pretty much the same. 2027, we're going to start to see reductions. Nothing massive, nothing major, but just reductions to start bringing the price down. And only if the PlayStation 6 launches at the end of 2027, then I think there'll be at least a £200 difference between the PlayStation 6 and the PlayStation 5 Pro. And then obviously the subsequent years, 2028, 2029, we'll see even further reductions for the PS5 base model and the PlayStation 5 Pro. They'll be seen as really as an opportunity to get more people in. So let's drop the price right down. Let's revisit the bill of materials. Let's get the production, the manufacturing costs down of the PlayStation 5. Bring those costs right down. What do they normally do? I don't want to say cheapen the internal components, but reduce certain features, right? Or just have a slim version, an even slimmer version of the PlayStation 5. Just knock it right out for $199. In 2028, 2029, just get people into the ecosystem. I can see those kind of things happening. A lot of it will just be dependent on global financial kind of markets and see what are the prices of these raw materials that people are shipping out from China. Petrov saying, doesn't UK have the Online Act? Yeah, it does. It does have the Online Act. But from what I've heard, it's only on dodgy websites, adult websites. So people going on to like Pornhub and stuff like that, they're having to use credit cards to verify their age. I've not seen it in any. I've not seen it. I've only played Battlefield 6 online. I haven't really played any of the game online since the app kicked in. Maybe there's other things happening further down. Maybe they're doing it in phases. But I've not been asked to verify anything online at all. Raz, you're saying you're hoping the PlayStation 6 isn't much more than $600. Sorry, we have to wait and see how the market conditions are in a couple of years' time. Agreed. There's two schools of thought here, because typically when Sony launches a console, they're in competition with Xbox or Nintendo, right? They're in that space. I know Microsoft's doing something slightly different. Yes, it's still competition. Everyone's competing for time, right? Everyone's competing against platforms that consume user time. So PlayStation's still competing, but maybe not from a hardware perspective. So in the past, they would have released a console at loss and make up the money after 2 or 3 years, several revisions of the hardware, and now they're selling the hardware at profit, but then make their money back on software and games. Is there a reason? Is there an incentive? I think we had this chat last week. Not to say Sony's going to sell the console at a ridiculously high price. They won't get mass adoption, and that's the thing they need for PlayStation 6. They need people to buy into it. So we could argue that Sony could sell it for $600 or $700 or even $800, but Sony's mindset is, how do we get people from PlayStation 5 to PS6? So first one's got to be price. It's got to be affordable. It's got to be an affordable device. I think $600, £600 is the absolute limit. I don't think Sony will do it though. I think they'll do $550 or $549. I think psychologically $600. Psychologically, that's the PlayStation 3 price, and I don't think they would do that. So I think Sony will go $550. In fact, I think they'll have two. I think they'll have two versions. I think they'll have a 1 terabyte version and maybe a 2 terabyte version. So the 1 terabyte version, like $550, and then they'll have a $650 2 terabyte version. I think none of the PS6 consoles will have a disk drive built in, installed into the console. I think the disk drive you'll be able to attach, like with the PlayStation 6, the PlayStation 5 Pro. So I think two prices, $550 and $650, will be the launch prices for the PS6 console. But yeah, any more than that, it's suicide at this stage anyway. Corey, you're saying you're okay with $749 price point for PS6, but I think they have to accept that the generation will last for at least a decade. Yeah, I think so. You see, part of me thinks yes, the PlayStation 6 will last for many, many years, maybe a decade. But the speed at which AI is developing and moving, part of me thinks it depends on how quickly tech advances and what does the PlayStation 7 look like? What's that future going to be for that platform? What kind of technology is going to be baked into that? And how fixable, how easy is it going to be to maintain the highest level of tech performance on the PlayStation 6? How easy is it going to be to update the systems? I suppose is the other thing they'll be thinking, because if they can continue supporting it, they'll support it for a lot longer. But it'd be nice to actually have the PlayStation 6 longer than the PS5 generation. So I know we've had some good games for the PlayStation 5. We've had some really good games. But honestly, I've only just got the PlayStation 5 Pro, and I know I've talked about 2027 being the release for the PS6, and either way, I'm still going to get it when it comes out. But it'll be nice just to have 2 or 3 years just enjoying the PlayStation 5 Pro with all the games that we've got coming out, and then we can move on to the PlayStation 6 and look forward to it, regardless of the price, because most people are into the PlayStation ecosystem. We'll just go ahead and get it. Some people will wait. That's not a problem. Some people are going to go from Pro to Pro. Again, it's not a problem. Others are probably going to be going from PS4 to PS5, and they might not get the PS6 for another 5 or 6 years. So there's still a lot of people on different platforms to support over the next 3 or 4 years when PlayStation launches PlayStation 6. So I briefly mentioned, right, competition. So if the next generation of Xbox consoles are going to cost, and it's been reported it's going to cost $1,200, maybe even up to $1,500 for the Xbox hybrid machine. Those that are currently gaming on Xbox who do not game on PlayStation, maybe they would decide actually it's worth picking up a PlayStation. Maybe we can invest in a lower costing piece of hardware. And if they don't fancy picking up a new PlayStation 6, maybe they can then jump in and take advantage of maybe a lower cost PlayStation 5 in 2028 or 2029. And that might be a suitable entry point for a lot of people, even those that are jumping from PS4 to PS5, right? Because by the time the PS6 comes out, those are the consoles, those are the versions out there in the market. They're going to be significantly lower. Certainly the back end of the PS5 life cycle. I'd like to think, and I think we've mentioned it, I'd like to think the PlayStation 5 would be kind of between the 300 to 350 price point a year or two after the PlayStation 6 launches. And that gives a nice entry point for maybe people on other platforms, maybe somebody on PC who wants a PlayStation console. Maybe they're not prepared to play whatever the PS6 price is going to be, but they're happy to get an older PS5 console just to experience some of those games. Who knows? But I think the PS5 is going to be around for a very long time and will be supported. So I think the sales for PS5 are going to be significantly higher than the PlayStation 4 sales. So Corey, you're saying, I think gamers need to accept that generations are going to be longer now. It's going to be a lot longer before someone needs a new hardware. Trying to make these consoles 600 or less will mean that. So trying to make these consoles 600 or less will mean that there will not be an upgrade for people who have a Pro now. Yeah, I think console generations are going to be longer. Yeah, console. We know they're going to be 12 years PS4, so we're talking 12 to 15 years PS5. So PS5 is still going to be around till 2035, 10 years still to come, which is fine. And you mentioned it before, Corey. If you want the highest frames, if you want the best graphics, if you want ray tracing and anything else, all the latest tech, you need to get a PlayStation 6. But if you're happy playing the game on your PS5, go for it. I think that's going to be the approach for a while Sony supports tail end of the PlayStation 4, the PlayStation 5, the PlayStation 6, the handheld, the Portal, and whatever else goes to PC. So it's spinning a lot of plates, but that's the environment we're in now. You can pretty much play all these PlayStation games on pretty much, I'd say pretty much every device, right? Apart from mobile at the moment, unless you're playing via remote play. Razi saying, I agree that they may have a couple of options with different price points with internal storage besides the portable dockable handheld version. Yeah, I think that's probably the only thing to separate two versions. They're not going to have a disc. They're not going to have a digital and a disc version. I'll be surprised if they do. That will be a surprise. I think the only obvious piece to differentiate two models will be the SSD inside. So a 1 terabyte and a 2 terabyte. Unless they just do away with it and say, right, our console comes with a basic, what was the PS5 storage? 830 odd gigabytes, right? So you want your own SSD, you're gonna have to buy an SSD card. I can see them doing that as well. Keep costs down. Again, that might be an option. pass that cost on to the consumer. I can see them doing that for sure. So there's also challenges for the PlayStation 5, right? There's just challenges for the PS5 to outsell the PS4. There's a few things that Sony needs to have a look at. So we know the PlayStation 5 had a high starting point when it first launched, right? And it had availability, shortages, mentioned scalpers, stock shortages and stuff like that. There were problems. The PlayStation 4 pretty consistent. It's built up a massive fan base and a very, very affordable console for people to enjoy lots of great PlayStation 4 games. and even now, the PlayStation 4 is still being supported. So the PlayStation 5 has got a challenge in terms of catching up with those sales. And we mentioned it before, that the console market, it feels a little bit slower, right? Growth is a little bit slower in the marketplace from a console perspective. There's more gaming options. People can play on any screen. So the necessity to actually go out and buy a console, it's not as important as it was back in the PlayStation 4 days. You can play on your PC, you can play on mobile, you can play on any screen, right? You can buy a competitor's device. So that mass adoption is harder to get with rising prices and competitors out there in the marketplace, right? And also, we've got, I'm sure it was Microsoft, so it was Satya Nadella or one of the Xbox guys said that consumer behavior is different, right? They're in competition with platforms that consume users' time. So TikTok was mentioned, YouTube Shorts was mentioned, streaming services were mentioned. So all those platforms are eating into people's time, which means they're spending less time gaming because of all these other platforms out there. So that's another thing that PlayStation 5 potential gamers are facing, and that's a challenge for Sony to get adoption higher than the PlayStation 4. And of course, somebody's already mentioned it in the chat. What if GTA 6 gets delayed? What if GTA 6 is pushed back again? Who knows to when? But that, again, a system seller is no longer a system seller in May. That system seller is further down the year, or maybe even 2027. So these are other things that could impact the PlayStation 5 outselling the PlayStation 4. And then we've got this. I mentioned the China Hero project. Great opportunity, but actually PC is the biggest market in China and a lot of these emerging markets. There's a lot of PC gamers out there. When Black Myth Wukong launched, it sold millions, absolute millions, but most of those were PC sales because most of the gamers in China play on PC. So there's still that mindset of converting gamers, whether they're converting from PC to PlayStation or they're asking people who game to actually have a PC and have a PlayStation. So there are challenges regionally. Plus, there's regulation, there's kind of approvals of games, censorship, there's licensing. There's all those things that are time costly and financially costly as well. And mobile gaming is massive as well in India, in China, in Southeast Asia. Mobile gaming is massive. Far more people play on their mobiles over in Asia than parts of Europe and the US. So these are challenges that are going to affect. These are challenges that will affect the uptake of PlayStation 5 consoles in those emerging markets. So Raz is saying, I won't be the least bit surprised if GTA is delayed again, perhaps fall 2026. Yeah, I wouldn't put it past them. I hope not. I really, really hope not. Everyone's been talking about it for so long. You just kind of want it out now, right? You want that. You want the game out because you kind of get this fatigue of having to talk about the same game being delayed over and over again. So if we can actually see the game out, that'd be great. But yeah, if it does get delayed to fall or even later, like early 2027, that's going to have a massive impact on console sales. Sotnist is saying, right, and since Sony wants to corner China, they know they cannot ignore PC, a delicate balancing act. Yeah, absolutely. 100% it is. It's a big balancing act. And, you know, again, it's another reason why Sony will have this PC launcher at some point tied into your PlayStation network. So you log into PC using your account and you can play your games. And all of a sudden, if you're a Chinese gamer in China enjoying games, all of a sudden you've now got access to PlayStation games on your PC platform. Or if they come to the console first, then you have an option to play them first on console. And then we'll see if they can shift sales on PC. But the way they've arranged this new game, Lulan, right? The Cursed Sands, that's a game in partnership with, I think it's a Chinese studio, part of China Hero Project. The way that game's been structured is coming to console and PC day and date. So people who game in China or other emerging markets will play that on PC first. A bit like Black Myth Wukong that came out on PC and PlayStation on launch. And the other thing that I think it got me thinking, actually, if you look at all the games you play on your PlayStation 5, obviously the new ones are coming out now, Battlefield and Ghost of Yotei, Death Stranding 2, right? But there's how many true PlayStation 5 games have we got? I mean, absolutely true, only PlayStation 5 or only this generation exclusive. There's not many, is there? A lot of games are cross-platform. A lot of games are still available on PlayStation 4. And so the PlayStation 4's catalog just continues to grow and grow and grow. So there's less of a reason. Less of a reason to jump ship quickly to the PlayStation 5. Sorry, I'm just getting distracted. I'm looking at my gameplay of Call of Duty World War II. Just remembering how good this game was. The single-player campaign was brilliant. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, the PlayStation 4 has a fantastic catalog of games, which, you know, is still growing, that catalog of games. And the console's very, very affordable. So there's no reason to jump ship onto PS5 just yet. Again, it's another reason why it's going to slow down the sales of the PlayStation 5 and adoption to moving over to the PS5 console. I think the final thing, I think, which is could be a negative thing for picking up a PlayStation 5 or something that might impact the sales, is it depends on your mindset on this. If you're someone who hasn't got a PlayStation 5 and you've been meaning to pick one up, you game on PS4 and you're thinking about picking up a PS5 and you're thinking, right, I'm going to get one, I'll just wait a little while. And then you start to read news and reports and leaks about the PlayStation 6 and all of its bells and whistles and the AI technology and how good games are going to look, the ray tracing, the PSSR. When you read about all that stuff and you think, that's going to be a beast of a console. Why not just skip the PlayStation 5? You can already play most of the games on the PS4, barring a handful. Why not skip the PlayStation 5 and we'll go straight for the PlayStation 6? Two schools of thought. You know, the cost obviously will play a part. You're still gaming on a PS4 for a reason. You haven't jumped to PS5 for a reason. Now, maybe you think, actually, the leap in games, in quality of the games, visually, is not such a big thing from PS4 to PS5. But when you go from PS4 to PS6, it's a big difference. So maybe that's another thing that will slow down the sales of the PlayStation 5 console. But I think if the PlayStation 5 continues on its current trajectory, 80 million, where we are right now, 80 million, GTA 6, if all being well, launches in May, plus the other games, the other big hitters, Saros, Intergalactic. We've mentioned them all before. All those games, they all come out. By the end of 2026, the PlayStation 5 will be close to 120 million, and it's done the PS4 numbers. And then it's got 9 years, I think, 9 years of support to continue selling when it'll have incremental reductions year on year, because then we're then preparing for the PlayStation 6. When people find out you can play GTA 6 4K 60 ray tracing on PlayStation 5 Pro, it's the only place that you're going to be able to do that. Just watch those bundles fly out. I wonder what else Sony will have. Are they going to have GTA 6 controllers, like PlayStation 5 DualSense controllers with GTA 6 branding? I wonder what kind of what styles are we going to get. Obviously, we're going to get the plates. That'll be interesting. I think we're going to see a huge surge in sales, an incredible number. So, do you think the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 5 Pro, those GTA 6 bundles with both of those consoles, do you think they've got the pulling power to sell millions? Think about it. 50 million PlayStation 4 gamers. How many of those millions still play GTA 5 online? How many are going to play on PlayStation 5? How many are going to go on the PlayStation 5 Pro to play GTA 6? That's the only game they're going to play. They're not interested in Saros. They're not interested in Intergalactic or Wolverine. There might be, but some people just play Call of Duty all day and every day. Some people just play GTA online all the time. That's all they play. They love it. They want to live in that world, right? A lot of these players just play one game. And if you're going to invest all your time playing one game, why not play it on the best platform to enjoy it? Why not play it in all of its glory on the PlayStation 5 Pro? So I think it's going to shift millions. I think they're going to sell millions of bundles when that PlayStation 5 Pro bundle is available. Sotnist, you're saying PSA Turok 2 finally got a free content update. So the whole Night Dive remaster trilogy is all next gen now. Well, I wonder if that's going to drive people to pick up pick up the console just to play that. I think it's probably not a big enough game, right? Is it, to just buy the console for one game? But I think it's a nice feature. It's a nice remaster if you've already got the platform. Raz, you're saying The Last of Us 3 PS6 or Uncharted 5 PS6? The Last of Us 3 PS6. See, though again, for me, they are absolutely must-have games. See, it's for me, it's not even a debate about whether I'm getting the PS6 or not. I'm already in. So any game on PS6, I'll be picking up, playing, enjoying, having a great time. But I suppose if you're a fan of the Uncharted series and you're looking forward to another one, and the only place you could play maybe an Uncharted 5, or if you're a fan of The Last of Us, I mean, how can you not be? It's incredible games, and you want to play The Last of Us 3, but the only place you could play it is on PS6. That's a reason there, isn't it, to go and get one of these Naughty Dog benchmark games. And then you're saying GTA 6 is 100% selling console bundles in the millions just for the game. Tens of millions. I think so. I think so. I'd be shocked if it doesn't. Back in the day, and I say it's back in the day, this is the kind of game where you'd have a midnight launch. This is the kind of game where people will be queued up around the block. this is the kind of game where you'd have people camping outside just to get their hands on it. It's that kind of game. But of course, you know, in this day of digital downloads, you can just order it and it'll be downloading overnight. Or in Corey's case, it'll be downloaded in 10 minutes and you can play it. So it's one of them games. This is a system seller. We don't get these. And this somebody described it this week in the news. This is a generational game. Once in a generation, you get games like this. You know, the last time, I know we like PlayStation games and we talk about PlayStation games and, you know, people like Spider-Man, Uncharted, The Last of Us. But when you play a Rockstar game, Red Dead Redemption 2, that is a generational game. That is unbelievable. GTA 6 is going to be a generational game. One of them games, you're going to be able to live in that world for so long. Look at all the things we could do in Red Dead Redemption 2, right? You can live in that world, camp, sleep, wake up, hunt. You can do all those things in that game and not do any of the missions and still watch time go by, right? You get into fights, get pissed in a saloon. You know, you can do all these things. It was great. And you can do all that and you can spend hours and hours and hours, hundreds of hours playing the game without actually doing a single mission. So imagine what you can do in GTA 6. This is a system seller. So Razzy's saying we've got one Naughty Dog game per generation now. Yeah. 3 Uncharted games, PS3 era, including the first Last of Us. Night and day with how long between developing games. Yeah. Yeah, I would say with GTA, up until GTA 5 was released, we had like 4 GTA games in 5 or 6 years. It was crazy. Very, very quick releases. Every other year there was a new GTA game. And we had GTA 5 and that was it. Everything stopped. Crazy, isn't it? Crazy how things have just taken so long to develop. Saxmax, 10 minutes. You need Corey's internet speed. Yes, we all do. Yeah, Ras, all 3 Dead Space games in one generation. I swear, the PS2 and PS3 era of gaming. I don't think we're ever going to get that again, where games were released so quickly, unless you know there's a good side to AI as well. Unless AI helps speed up those types of things for us, we could get games coming out much quicker if assets are created and designed, and if coding can be supported. Not losing the human touch, of course, we need that creativity, but there's things that AI can do to help assist. And if it cuts the development time of games, then that's a good thing, right? Sax Max, have I completed Yote? I have 3 more to hunt. No, I haven't. No, unfortunately. I said at the start of the podcast that it's not been a good week for the Yote 6. They've got away this week. I've got 3. I've got 3 left to get. My time has been taken up with Battlefield 6 this week, just leveling up my sniper. So yeah, that's been a bit slow, but I'm hoping to get back on it this coming week with more gameplay. PS3 era was your favorite game after game. Yeah, I felt like that. PS1, PS2, and PS3. Literally, there's like new games coming out all the time. It was literally non-stop with games. It slowed down a little bit, PS4 era, but even the PS4 era was really, really good. Lots of games coming out. Obviously, PS5 is all different. Cannot argue with the quality of the games, just we want more of that quality. So let's move on to the final piece here, guys. This is reported in the news. Amazon, they're in trouble, right? Their gaming section. Let's see if we can open this up. So Amazon is moving away from MMOs and making significant cuts to its gaming business. So Amazon has revealed in a message to staff, and this is obtained by Bloomberg, that it's planning to move away from the production of MMOs, as well as making significant cuts to its video game business. According to the message, Amazon is set to cut more than 14,000 corporate jobs, a large portion of which will impact its game development and publishing business. Now, Steve Boom, Vice President of Audio, Twitch, and Games, stated that Amazon San Diego and Irvine studios have been hit heavily by these cuts. And he goes on to say that while we're proud of our success in first-party AAA game development and publishing, we've made the difficult decision to halt a significant amount of our first-party AAA game development work, specifically around MMOs within Amazon Game Studios. And while these changes are significant, we still have a lot going on in game development. Our Montreal studio recently concluded a successful closed alpha of March of Giants and is working hard to finish the game. Our Studio 5 team just released Courtroom Chaos, starring Snoop Dogg as the launch title in Luna, and will continue their focus on more casual and AI-focused games. I think that's a very important part there. Casual and AI-focused games optimized by Luna. Finally, we're continuing to work with our external studio partners like Crystal Dynamics on an upcoming Tomb Raider title and Maverick Games on an upcoming open world driving game. The new Tomb Raider video game has been in the works for a while now and is a collaborative effort between Crystal Dynamics and Amazon Games. The game has yet to be given an official reveal, although it has been confirmed that it will be a single-player narrative-driven adventure, which is in line with previous entries. So, big issues with Amazon and their gaming division. I suppose my question here is, Amazon's a behemoth, right? They make billions in profit every year. Billions. They got money to waste. They got money to burn. Of course, they have to report to shareholders. Why are they struggling? Why do gamers not resonate with what Amazon are doing? The way I pitch this is that does it prove that if you don't have good exclusive content, it doesn't give people the opportunity to buy into what you're doing. It doesn't give people a chance to believe what you're doing. Does that make sense? It's something I wanted to talk about for a while because it's not just one company. It's not a story about just Amazon. There's lots of companies laying off people, right? But what makes gamers invest in a studio or a development team or a game? What is it? What's that key thing? Sotnet, you're saying only a few weeks ago I thought Amazon could be one to buy WB. Now that's gone out the window with their layoffs. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I was hoping that Amazon, Google, Apple, I was hoping they'd all come out with their own little devices, consoles, compete in the console market space. Corey, you're saying putting out games at 720 and shaky 30 FPS while loading screens a lot faster than putting out 4K games with ray tracing 60 FPS modes, massive open worlds and very little loading screens, if any at all. People say that they want PS3 game releases pace, but don't want the quality of PS3 games that allowed that pace. Yeah, that's a good point. I often go back to, I look at the old PlayStation 2, the PS3 games, even some of the PlayStation 4 games, and I'm very time poor. I don't have a lot of time to play games and replay games, so you don't often see me going back and playing older games. I might try it if I've got a spare half an hour. I might just jump back into something that I've not played for a while, but I don't sit there and go through, right, I'm going to do the whole rerun of Uncharted 1. Right, I'm not going to go and sit there and play The Last of Us Part 1 again. I'd like to if I ever had the time, but I just don't have the time. If I spend my time playing the older games, then that's another 3 or 4 games, new ones, that are going on my backlog. My backlog is just it's like endless at the minute. I've got so many games I want to get through. So that's one thing. And the second thing I'll say is, when I do go back and look at the older games, sometimes I think, they're better off in our head. They're better off in our memories, because sometimes you think, I think back to some of the games I've played in the past. In my head, I've got this impression of what the game's going to look like. But actually, when I go back, I see the faces, and you can't even see the lips. It's like bland. It's like very, very pixelated. You can clearly tell, those are old games. And I suppose my point is, for the time period that we were in, PlayStation 2 era, the PlayStation 3 era, 720 gaming was the best it was. So it looked good to us at the time. But having now played at 1080p and 4K and with ray tracing, do I really want to go back and play the old games for hours and on? I don't. I think they would be great for a portable device. Mentioned before, the PlayStation Portable. The opportunity to play the PS3 games. And I'm only saying that because a lot of people haven't played those PlayStation 3 games for probably 20 years. And it brings back a lot of memories. And I think a lot of that is down to nostalgia. Whereas all the PlayStation 4 games and the PS2 games, they're all available to play. You can play them off PlayStation Plus subscription. So there is this nostalgia thing about having the opportunity to go back and revisit games that we probably haven't touched for the best part of 20 years. I think a lot of that is about not having the PS3 era of games available. I think people just look back and think, I wish we had that opportunity. But the reality is, just from a personal perspective, I don't know how many old games I can really sit here and play. They were good for the days that were made. They were great memories playing those games back in the day, but I think they play better in my head than actually going back and playing them in this day and age. If that makes sense. Razzie saying, I would have loved for Sony to buy the gaming division of WB, but that doesn't seem a possibility now. Yeah, Sony seems to have distanced themselves. Well, actually, their actual report, which came out about WB Games, was them distancing themselves from the movies and TV shows. They said they don't want bloat from a movie's perspective. They don't need those studios. They want to grow organically and make kind of independent decisions and not have to make the same types of movies over and over again. They never once mentioned the gaming division. So what I'm hoping for is the way Warner Brothers Discovery has broken their internal structures down. They've just segmented out certain sections. One section is kind of news focused. One section is movies and one section is gaming. I'm hoping that Netflix, who are currently reported as being interested in acquiring WB, I'm hoping Netflix is just after the movies and TV show. I mean, they could go after gaming. They have got a gaming division. But I'm hoping they just go after the movies side of it. And they leave the gaming division to other players like Sony. I think a Sony Batman game will be absolutely phenomenal. I'd love that. Give it to Insomniac Games. Just give that game to them. Razzie saying PS3 era had fantastic quality games as well, not just quick release pace. Yeah, PS3 era games were good. I think sometimes when we look back at these games, that at the time, we didn't have 4K gaming, we didn't have ray tracing and all this kind of fantastic visuals that we have now. I've gone back and I've played some of these older games. They're great fun. Don't get me wrong, they're great fun. They bring back great memories, but I don't think I can sit there and play all of them again. I can't sit there for hours and hours playing older games. It's just a me thing. An hour here, an hour there, the odd mission, on a little handheld device, perfect. Right. So what I was saying, so the Amazon thing for me, you know, why don't gamers, why are Amazon struggling? Is it the gamers? They're not resonating with people, are they? They're not. Amazon are making these games that I don't think people enjoy or like. They don't want them. There's a reason here, isn't there? And me personally, I think it's always down to good exclusive games. I think you make good games that people like, that are only available on your platform, you get more uptake, you get more people buying into that platform. But they have to be good. They have to be what people want. And in that article, it said, you know, they were focusing more on AI games. Just sounds like slop to me. Sounds terrible. And casual games, which, you know, I casual games for me, and I don't want people to take this the wrong way. I see games like games being played on your mobile, little casual games when you've got 10 minutes between, you know, between tasks. You've got 20 minutes. You've got a bit of time for your screen. Play a casual game, right? Whether it's on your laptop, whether it's on your tablet. I think it's similar to what Satya Nadella was saying and the other guys at Microsoft about competing for screen time, competing for users' attention. I think Amazon are buying into this. We've got to make games that are accessible quickly, so AI slop, and casual markets, so that when people have 10 minutes, rather than flicking through TikTok and YouTube Shorts, maybe we can give them a quick game they can play and we can monetize it. I think that's what they're aiming for, and they've cancelled a lot of their other games that they were working on for that. Plus, there's a lot of bloat, and there's AI integration, which will all help reduce their developers that they've let go, unfortunately. So Razzy's saying, you sure hope your PS5 games look better now than your Atari games back in the day. Not planning to go back to Pong or Frogger anytime soon, except for nostalgia. Yeah. Corey saying, from 720 to 4K, there's a lot more detail that you have to account for at 4K that you never had to account for at 720. That's true. That's a good point. That's a really good point. I do think that these older games will be great on smaller portable devices, handheld, for example, PS Portal. Make these old games available there. And on a small screen, I think they'd look good. So Corey is saying, you love how everything is just considered slop today. No, not everything. Not everything. Just, I've got this thing about AI slop. I've just, hang on a sec. Let me open. It's too hot in here. One sec. It's absolutely roasting. So I've got this thing with, when people refer, like Amazon have just referred to, they've referred to laying off 14,000 people. You know, they want to make more AI focused games, and they want to make more games for casuals. That to me just says they're going to make cheap games, quick games, games that you can churn out, games that have microtransactions, just to get people in, just to kind of follow this trend of people have short attention spans. We don't want to make big games, so let's give them something they can quickly get into. That I get that feeling from it. I might be wrong. You know, they have got partnerships going on. They're making a Tomb Raider game. They've got something else, a single player racing game or something, right? What was it called? An open world driving game, I think it said in that report. So they have got other little projects, but they're not Amazon games. They're partnership projects. I don't know. Something just doesn't resonate with what they're doing. They're not giving. I don't think for the amount of money they've invested in their gaming division, it's just not resonating what they're making. It doesn't quite hit the mark. It just feels cheap. So honestly saying slop is the most popular word today. It certainly is. AI slop, live service slop, AAA slop, just everything is slop. Indie slop. Raz is saying, we know it takes a lot more to develop a big AAA game in today's standards, but the time it takes now is drastically much longer. 10 years between games is absurd, like GTA 5 to GTA 6. Yeah, 10 years is a long time, but I think I'm going to part the Rockstar example, because what they can do with their games is just ridiculous. The level of, I mean, everything's a simulation in that game, isn't it? If I'm going back to Red Dead Redemption 2, GTA 5, GTA 5 Online, they've released loads of kind of online levels for GTA, and it's literally printing money for them. So I get why, and the games are so good in terms of what they do. But I think every studio taking such a long time to make games it's hard work, man. It's hard. It's expensive. I can't remember the last time a big studio knocked out 2 games very quickly. I mean, to be fair, Insomniac Games, right? At the end of the PlayStation 4 and at the start of the PlayStation 5 era, they had, what do they have? Spider-Man 1, Miles Morales, Ratchet and Clank, and then Spider-Man 2. And they released those 4 games in the space of about 6 years, 6 to 7 years. So 4 big games in a very short period of time. So I think they've shown what could be done. But of course, now we're at this period now where they need to refocus their efforts on their next set of games. And from their leaked that hack about their games, we know we've got a Venom game coming up. There's going to be a Spider-Man 3, potentially another Ratchet and Clank, and an X-Men game. So there's 4 projects they're working on over the next few years. So it can be done, but not every studio is like that, right? Not every studio can knock out big games. Like Corey's mentioned in the chat, there's these big games have big assets, textures, 4K resolution. There's a lot baked in. There's a lot more systems involved in these worlds. Some of these games are built from scratch for new systems, new game engines. Just takes a long time to develop. Yeah, Rockstar games are just completely different level. They're in a league of their own when it comes to making games, and they've got the developers there to kind of back them up. So, just going back to that Amazon report. Obviously, 2 schools of thought. One, of course, there's always sympathy with anyone losing their job. So I hope those developers and anyone affected, finds opportunities quickly. But another side of me was thinking, what is Amazon doing in gaming? What are they trying to achieve? Are they trying to make these kind of low-level games, or do they really want to do it in gaming? Do they really want to establish themselves as a recognized industry player that can make great games? I think they need to define what they want to do. Because when I think of, you think of PlayStation, we've already mentioned it a number of times in the chat, right? When you think about PlayStation, you think, Intergalactic, Saros, The Last of Us games. There's so many games, God of War, and the list is endless. Even Wolverine coming up, right? And people are thinking, I've got to play that game. I need to get a PlayStation, or that's on my list. I can't wait to buy it. Even with Xbox, people are saying, yeah, I can't wait to play Outer Worlds 2, or I can't wait to play the next Gears of War. People are saying, I want to get these games. On Nintendo, they say that with Donkey Kong and whatever else, Mario and Zelda. When Amazon releases a game, I've never heard someone say, I've got to play that game. I've got to have it. This is crucial. I need this. I've got to play it. I've never heard anyone say that. Never heard it at all. I mean, I only recently found out you can get free games with Amazon Prime. What's the point? There's so many platforms that offer free games that it's no longer just a a unique USP. It's not a perk anymore saying, oh, this platform or publisher offers free games. Everyone does it now. Everyone's giving away games to try and get people into the platform. So it's not a big USP, I think. All these large companies are doing it with subscriptions. They're dropping in games. PlayStation give you 3 free games every month with your lowest tier. Xbox do something similar. So the expectation that people are just going to play all these games all the time, that's not a reality, right? Not everyone can play games non-stop all the time. The reality is most people, right, if we're honest, most people will have, I don't know, 1 or 2 hours a day at most to play games, 15 to 20 hours a week. Just the average bloke out there, the average gamer, should I say, not bloke. I want to be inclusive, right? Unless you're a kid where you got loads of hours, but not everyone's got 30, 40, 50 hours a week. Some people have, and that's absolutely fine, but not everyone does. So the idea of going from one game to another non-stop, it's not realistic. Not many of us can do that. So what is Amazon trying to do with its gaming division? What's the reality of what they're trying to do? So Corey is saying, if you have a slight shimmer on the grass, there are people saying your entire game looks like a blurry mess. Yeah, that's the internet for you. Even if you make a great game, the internet goes crazy. But the internet's not reality though, is it? That's the thing. The internet's not real. Whereas you're saying that is one of the things that drives me crazy when people complain about a glimmer in a blade of grass, or if the water doesn't shimmer properly in a certain spot, it must be slop. Yeah, or if the puddles don't show you proper reflections, like the puddles in Spider-Man or the windows in Spider-Man. Sopnist, you actually remember complaining about the grass in BioShock Infinite and comparing it to Metal Gear Solid 3's moving tall grass. Corey is saying the standards for games and gamers in the last 10 years have gone insanely out of control. You blame Digital Foundry. They've people insight into the technical side of gaming, and now gamers expect eye-popping visuals as a starting point. They also want advanced AI systems, immersive sound, etc., etc. Puddlegate, yeah, exactly, Puddlegate. We all remember Puddlegate. So, there's always something to complain about instead of appreciating it for the art that it is, especially when it's a great story. Yeah, exactly. There will always be people that complain just for the sake of complaining. It just happens. So just ignore it. Social media's, especially Twitter, X, it's full of it. So no point really paying any attention to it. So Amazon, the reality of Amazon's gaming studio, right? They've got San Diego and they've got Irvine, and both of these have been heavily impacted. According to the internal memos, they're stopping their first-party games around, so the AAA development of first-day games around MMOs. They still have something else called March of Giants. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it's not my kind of game. It doesn't really look that appealing. And they got another game with like a courtroom drama with Snoop Dogg. Again, no interest whatsoever. Absolutely zero interest. And we know it's partnering with Crystal Dynamics on Tomb Raider and the open world driving game. But the question really is, does any of that make you want to go out and buy it, play those games? It doesn't make me want to play a single game. Maybe the Tomb Raider game, that sounds interesting. Crystal Dynamics is on it. I've always liked Tomb Raider games. You get the Uncharted vibes. You've got that Indiana Jones vibe going on. Right? Man, this Call of Duty game brings back some great memories. I said it before. It just sounds like games that are just of no interest to me in terms of what Amazon are doing right now. And I do question myself sometimes. I do sit there and think, is it just me that plays like? Is it just me that looks forward to games like Uncharted, The Last of Us, Insomniac, Saros, Phantom Blade, the next Black Myth Wukong game, Part 2? Is it just me? Those are my kind of games, right? Silent Hill, That's what I like. Resident Evil. I don't play any of this crap that Amazon are making. I've got no interest in it. Absolutely zero interest. So I do question myself. Is it just me that reads this and thinks, what the hell are they doing? They're laying off 14,000 people. Of course they are. They're going to make crap like this. Who's going to buy it? Who's playing this rubbish? And then you read that they're making more AI games and more games for casual. So I do question myself. Am I out of touch thinking like this? You know, why are they not making games like, why are Amazon with their billions not sitting there and thinking, look at what Elden Ring did, right? In terms of sales. Look at what Hogwarts did in terms of sales. Look at new games like Stellar Blade, right? Relatively small studio, partnered with PlayStation. Look at Black Myth Wukong. Look at these games that are coming out. Why can't we do something like that? And Amazon has got the money to go off and create studios, you know, entice developers. Why aren't they making those kind of games? Just make me wonder, right? Who's playing the crap that they're making right now? I do question myself. It cannot be just me thinking the games that I like, most people will like, because I like good games. I like games like Silent Hill, you know, The Last of Us, God of War, Uncharted. You know, I like GT7, GTA, Battlefield. They're good games. Raz is saying, that's why I love your channel. You don't create clickbait videos with nothing but complaining like most of the content creators. You give the news and headlines out of your own love for gaming. Exactly. You know, I think we all fall into that trap of having a go, right? We all done it. I'm guilty of doing it. We all sit there and talk about, ha, this is, you know, that you made a mistake with that. This person said this, and I think we all fall into that habit. But the one thing I'll do very, very quickly is pull myself back out. That's not what this is about. This is about looking at good games, looking about the gaming industry. It's about looking at what's happening out there. You know, why we enjoy gaming, right? Great games. We want good games. And when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad. And just, you know, you've got to talk about these things, whether they're good or bad. You've got to talk about it, because that's what the channel's about. Gaming news, rumors, and leaks. And with the Amazon stuff, it does bring me on to something we talked about before, which is exclusive content. Now, you've got to have people invested in your platform, right? I'm not about the hardware, so like PlayStation, the Xbox consoles, and Nintendo's platform. I want about the actual platforms, the software available, right? They all have exclusive content to some degree. We know it goes everywhere at some point, but PlayStation still has exclusives. Nintendo has exclusives all the time. Xbox used to have exclusives before they went multi-plat. So part of the hardware discussion, but the debate around software is that these platforms have exclusive content or had exclusives. PlayStation's had it, right? Not just any exclusives, but high quality, highly driven, story driven, single player, good quality games. You cannot get those games anywhere on launch. You want it, you've got to buy a PlayStation, or you've got to buy Nintendo for their games, right? And Sony's built its entire PlayStation brand. I'm just focusing on PlayStation here. They built the entire PlayStation brand on that philosophy. So the philosophy of, you want to play one of our big AAA games, you've got to buy a PlayStation. That's it. That's what you've got to do. Sotnist, you saying Amazon's approach is like the evil corporation in Ready Player One. 101. Yeah, 101 games. Was it 101? They just want something for normies to live in and spend money in. Yeah. Yeah, they do sound like an evil corp, but you know, they've got the money to invest. Look at what, you know, PlayStation built its brand over the last best part of 30 years. You buy a PlayStation, you know what you're going to get, right? You're going to get world-class studios that have been developed and nurtured over time, right? So Naughty Dog, Santa Monica, Insomniac, Sucker Punch, Housemarque, Guerrilla Games, and if like Housemarque and Bluepoint have only recently joined PlayStation, but they've worked with PlayStation before for many, many years in collaboration. So those developers, the know-how, the knowledge, working with Sony. And when you build that relationship up over 10, 15, 20 years, you nurture talent, you grow talent, you bring people through. You know how to do things at Sony. You know how they want their games made. That know-how is invaluable. And that's what Amazon should be doing. They should be nurturing studios. They've got the money to do it. Have 5 or 6 teams making 5 or 6 projects that are absolutely Sony-esque. Use their model. Use PlayStation as a benchmark and say, we're going to make games look like this. And then we're going to put them out on our platform, only available on Amazon, or make it go third party. But they can have some success that way. At the moment, they're releasing crap and they're not getting anywhere. They're just laying people off. The games at PlayStation, they define generations. We've already mentioned games before, but Spider-Man, Horizon, God of War, right? The Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, Ghost of Yotei, Returnal. The list is like endless. And it makes it worth owning a PlayStation platform because of those games. You compare that to Amazon's lineup. What killer app, what killer game do they have? They've got nothing. Nothing. As I like to say, diddly squat. They've got nothing. Nout. Anyway. What can Amazon do to get it right? Right? What are the good things? Right? Have they got credit in the bank? They've got resources, right? That's about the only good thing they've got. They've got resources, they've got an infrastructure, right? So they're one of the biggest companies in the world. They've got I've read this, right? One of these kind of finance magazines, it was like a Bloomberg report, or I think they make like 25 to 30 billion a month that they used to invest in different areas, R&D, game development, and other areas of technology. So they're one of the biggest businesses in the world. If they wanted to, they could easily build a massive lineup of good games over time if they nurture that talent. And that's an advantage that some of the other companies don't have in the space right now. Obviously, they've got partnerships with Crystal Dynamics for the next Tomb Raider. But could they have partnerships with other studios? Like I mentioned Sony before, and their partnerships with emerging markets. Could they have partnerships with more indie developers for better games? Get some of those indie games onto an Amazon, I was going to say Amazon platform, but if they had their own place where they can release games first, like the Luna platform, have games go there first and then they release everywhere else. They've got opportunities, but I just don't see them taking advantage of these opportunities. What they can't do, they can't throw money at it, because we've seen that happen, right? We've seen platform holders just throw billions at the problem, hoping they can fix it. We've seen it with Xbox, right? You can't throw money at the gaming industry and just expect it to work. It doesn't work that way. And rightly or wrongly, we're seeing Xbox move away from exclusive content because it's just not manageable for the money they've spent. The return on investment's not there. It's a separate conversation. This is about Amazon, but just to, you can't throw money at the problem. You've got to work at it. I do think they lack identity, Amazon. I can't look at them and think, what do they make? What kind of games do they make? What are they into, right? You look at PlayStation, typically most people say, when people talk about PlayStation, you say single player, narrative, cinematic, story. That pretty much sums up PlayStation, and I love it, right? When people think about Nintendo, you think kind of kid-friendly games, right? Family experiences, great. If you like that kind of stuff, great, fantastic. When you think of Xbox in the past, you typically I used to say a lot of first-party games, first-person games on Xbox, a lot of multiplayer games on Xbox. That's what I used to think of for the Xbox platform. So with Amazon, I just think slop. That seems to be the word of the day, slop. So that's what I think of Amazon at the minute in terms of their games. I don't think they've built trust with gamers with their games, right? When Sony releases a new game or makes an announcement, there's curiosity, there's excitement, right? If Sony shows a trailer, people go nuts. If Sony shows a logo, the internet explodes. It goes nuts, right? And I think they've got credit in the bank. They've messed up a few times, Sony, but they've got enough credit in the bank over the last 30 years of game development, right? That people tend to trust what they do to some extent, right? And they've proven themselves time and time again with consistent quality of their games. Amazon hasn't done that, right? And with consistency, we can build loyalty, right? The gamers start to buy into that studio and the developers a bit more. And that's my point about exclusives. They give you a reason to care about a platform. Just my thoughts really on the layoffs recently. It's a lot of layoffs, 14,000 people. Of course, some of that is going to be down to AI too. AI being adopted by most tech companies now, and obviously it's going to be at the expense of developers, which is a real shame. Sotnist, you're saying that we're lucky Invincible versus exists. Devs who left Double Helix, which was a studio which Amazon purchased out of under Microsoft, then basically just dissolved into Amazon Game Studios. I think what we're going to get is a lot of these developers now that are being let go from various studios. Obviously, we've had quite a few from Xbox recently let go. Sony's let some go in the past. We had Ubisoft let go of some developers. And now we're seeing 14,000 across a number of different teams and divisions, mainly in the gaming area from Microsoft. I think we're going to see a lot of small independent studios between 1 and 10, 1 and 15, 1 and 20 people, setting themselves up. Lots of independent studios out there. They're going to be making on different projects, exciting projects, different types of games, smaller experiences. I think we're going to see a lot of that. And if they're any good, we're going to see kind of like a resurgence of independent studios for a period of time. Of course, they're going to use AI to help, right? But we're going to see a lot of these small studios that are going to set themselves up with different ideas, different games, new IPs, because I think the industry is crying out for brand new IPs right now. We're going to see a lot of that. And then at some point, you are going to see the likes of Tencent, the likes of the Saudi Arabia Investment Fund, Sony, and Microsoft either partner or look to acquire those small teams once they've proven what they can do with their new indie games. That's how I think it will go. But in terms of what Amazon are doing, I honestly haven't got a clue. They just seem to be all over the place. No idea what they're doing with their gaming. But I just thought it would be interesting to cover that because we've seen a lot of developers being laid off over the last few months. And again, this is another one here, another big tech company looking like they're going to adopt AI technology and changing their direction in terms of gaming and letting go a significant amount of talent. So let's move on to the last bit, which is really taking a look at the channel polls. And let's see if we can get this on the screen. So this is relatively, can you see that? Yeah. So this is a relatively new poll for today. It's about 9 hours old. It's got 320 votes. But where do you game? Do you game on a monitor or do you game on a TV? And overwhelmingly, nearly 80% of the people who voted, we've had about 320 votes so far. As I say, it's only 9 hours old. So 80% of the people game on a TV. So I find that quite interesting, actually, considering how many comments I get on the channel about PC gaming and resolution and frame rates and all that kind of stuff. Sotness, you're saying Expedition 33 was ex-Ubisoft developers too. So was Stray, and AI will help them to do big things without needing so much big investors who ruin the game. And you're right, Saudi Arabia is shaking things up. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of I think it needs it. I think the gaming industry needs change, and it needs just freshening up a little bit. So a few comments on this. So Raz is gaming on a 77-inch S90D 4K OLED TV. Loving it. When the PS6 comes out, I'll go for an 8K version. Jeez, 8K. Another comment here. Chrisari Zare. TV for the console, monitor for PC. Dorian on a Series X with a 55-inch TV. Son is on a Series S with a 27-inch monitor, and it looks great. Fantastic. Nathan, 27-inch OLED. Captain America, he's a console gamer. And he games on a 55-inch LG. 4K TV and remote play on my 10.9-inch Galaxy Tab. I'm quite surprised. I thought there'll be more people gaming on a monitor than a TV. I game on a TV. I think it's perfect. Absolutely brilliant. So we had the Nathan Drake Deception Uncharted 3 14th birthday. What a fantastic game this was. Absolutely incredible. So Uncharted there getting a lot of love. I can't scroll down any further on this. You can't see some of those comments. Here we go. Loving the Uncharted games. Happy birthday. One of the best series ever. My favourite of the original trilogy. Still my favourite entry in the series. Although A Thief's End is very close to surpassing it. Excellent. What a fantastic game Uncharted 3 was. So, I did this one, right? This was the Mass Effect series of games. I did this because back in the day, I used to love the Mass Effect games. So this is a day old. We've had 456 votes. And overwhelmingly, Mass Effect 2, clear winner, 62%. And the rest are kind of much of a muchness. Mass Effect 3, 15%. Mass Effect 1, 14%. And 9% for Mass Effect 4. I'm quite surprised at that, actually. Mass Effect 2, the clear leader. So 3 all day. All depends on what I want to revisit. Raz has never played any of them. 4-way split. So pretty much a landslide victory there for Mass Effect 2. Good to see. It's a good game, actually. It's a pretty good game. Raz, you're saying PlayStation 6 is supposed to support 8K 60 FPS via upscaling or 4K at 120 FPS. You almost got an 8K TV recently, but decided to wait for the PS6 release. I'm gonna wait for the tech to increase. I've got a OLED C2. So I game on a 42-inch in this studio here, so it's on my right hand side. It's perfect. It's perfect for this room. I don't think I'd get a bigger TV in this room. But the main TV for the living room, when I get a PlayStation 6, I will keep the PS5 and I'll switch that one downstairs. So I do want to pick up a newer version, but I'll wait for the PS6 to come out. Let's just see what's out there in the market then. So Killzone, I put a poll out about Killzone. And again, Killzone 2, pretty much a landslide. Nearly 50% of the votes going to Killzone 2 and 23% Killzone 4. I'm surprised at that. I thought maybe 1 or 3 would be a choice, but no. Killzone 2, the clear winner. Sotness, you want a C2 as well? Yeah, I love the C2. I think it's brilliant. So the match is saying that we need a whole remastered collection. Ritualizing pick number 3, because as a younger player on PlayStation 3, you never got to own Killzone. However, played the demo for at least 10 times. Yeah, again, a lot of love for the game, a lot of love for Killzone. Everybody's asking for a remaster. Just not happening, is it? I just wish we got that remaster for Killzone. I'm surprised at this Silent Hill one. I'm really surprised at this. So 600, just over 600 people voted. 83% say Silent Hill 2 remake is better than Silent Hill F. I thought Silent Hill 2 remake would be the more preferred game, but I thought the results would be a lot closer than this. I thought it would be like 55 to 45, maybe 60-40. But 83%, geez, that's a massive, massive disappointment for Silent Hill F in comparison to Silent Hill 2. Sotonist, you're saying you want Nixis to do proper Killzone remakes like they did with Horizon. Yeah, that they're one of the... Well, it used to be Bluepoint, right? I think they're working on their own project now. Oh, the Decimate engine's brilliant. Yeah, that would be fantastic. But I want them to do the trilogy. We need that trilogy. So yeah, big disappointment. A big surprise, not disappointment. Silent Hill F is good, but just doesn't hit like 2. The combat in F is horrendous. I wasn't aware it was that bad. I have no idea where I'm supposed to go after the alley on Silent Hill 2. Started playing other games. Which alley? I think Tox is helping there with a guide. Stuck at the jukebox. So there's a few people stuck in these Silent Hill games. I'm not sure. I don't know why people don't use the guides on PlayStation, or maybe not even on PlayStation. On just go to YouTube. Figure it out. You know, if you can't figure it out, have a look at the guides. That's what they're there for. Corey is saying Silent Hill F doesn't feel like a Silent Hill game. It's a good game, just not a Silent Hill game. Razzie saying Silent Hill F is a good game, but the fact that it isn't actually in Silent Hill is a big... Yeah, it's in an area in Japan, isn't it? They've changed locations. Wonder what Silent Hill Town Hall is going to be like then. I think, yeah, you're saying that the combat's not horrendous. I think that person's just a bit pissed off that it's not a Silent Hill game. And what else have we got here? So we had another one here 4 days ago. So 815 votes. A Thief's End or Uncharted 2 amongst thieves. 65-35. A Thief's End. So Gregory is saying Uncharted 2 had better pace and greater impact with its introduction to a major set piece and transitions. Much more of an essential title in gaming than 4, in your opinion. It's a tough one, but I had to go with 4. Such a great series. And that's the thing, right? It is a tough choice because a lot of people like Uncharted 2. It's a great game. But a lot of people love Uncharted 4 because it's a great game. And it concluded the Uncharted series of games. It's perfect. It's a perfect end. It really is. Even though we want Uncharted 5. Softness, you send people complaining about combat and getting stuck. Good old Silent Hill. Yeah, Corey, some people don't actually explore in games. If there's no quest marker, they're lost. Yeah, I think it's a personal opinion, but I think there's a lot of hand-holding in games in general. I think the old way of just exploring, figuring shit out, right? Just do it, figure it out, make it work, investigate, explore the world. You'll find a way, right? A lot of that seems to be gone because people just switch to easy mode too quickly. Or, like you say, they want hint. They want to know where the solution is rather than figuring it out themselves. It's a shame. Softness, you're saying 4 edges out 2. I don't think the others agreed. How did people put 4 above 2? It's crazy. Corey is saying 2 is the best. I think for me 4. I like 4. 4 to me just wraps up the series perfectly. I like 2. Set pieces were fantastic. But yeah, I just love 4. Chris is saying 2, 3, 4, then 1. I just can't forget the train. So 2. Another one saying 2. Razzie saying you love all of them. Yeah, great games. Great games. But 65%, yeah, it's a big margin. I thought it would be a bit closer than that. Corey saying the order of Uncharted games for you is 2, 4, 1, and 3. You know, I can't. I'm not going to agree or disagree with anyone. Thing is, they're all great games. The series is so good, and the fact that we're having a debate about which one's best just shows that there's not one that you can say is really bad. They're all great, but clearly the toss-up is between 2 and 4 for a lot of people. Raz is saying Uncharted series is great. It's a great period, especially for old school Indiana Jones lovers as myself. That type of adventure drew me in from the start. Yeah, I used to love those games. Uncharted, the Tomb Raider games were great for back in the day. Great kind of exploration in those games. Even the old Prince of Persia games, I used to love them. We've had the Silent Hill debate. So 5 days ago, 760 votes for these series of games. And again, I thought it would be closer, but Ratchet and Clank landslide 55% over Sly Cooper, Crash Bandicoot, and Jak and Daxter. I thought the results would be a bit closer, actually. I didn't think they'd be this far out. No one likes the Vita one. I just don't think it had the mass appeal, unfortunately. 3 felt the weakest, and 2 made it a household name. You can't forget the train. The train set piece was just legendary. So Crash Bandicoot 100% was a big part of my childhood. Still love playing them. Torn between Ratchet and Clank and Sly Cooper. When I got a PS2, Sly 2, Ratchet and Clank, and Kingdom Hearts were the first 3 games I had. Good times. Original Ratchet and Clank trilogy is still the best. I picked, but I'd rather not. All are of equal importance and playability. Who's this? This is a Ox. Maybe I've crossed the line to being too old. Playing kids games now feels like a chore. JJ, Yo B, UK. What's crazy? If you can go back and play Ratchet and Clank on the PS2, there's a reason why this game still holds up till this day. It's because of Insomniac. Let that sink in. Yeah, great games. Great games. Sotnisty saying Ratchet and Clank is the one for you. Razzie saying Vita was okay. First game I got for that launch. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to resonate with the Ratchet and Clank series. Great set of games. Yeah, I couldn't resist with this one. Welcome to the club. Yeah, we upvoted that 50 times. Nice to see Master Chief join the party. You know, one of them moments, right? I'm going to do the last 2. So, Lost Planet 1, 2, and 3. Again, a bit surprised that number 3 wasn't voted that highly. But Lost Planet 1 was good. In fact, I liked all 3, to be fair. Yeah, 2 is the one with the falling building set piece. Yeah, 2. That was great, that falling building. Roadburner saying Lost Planet 2 is your favourite game. It's the only one I own, so it's my favourite by default. Lost Planet 1 by a country mile. Lost Planet, old set of games. Really enjoyed them for the time they come out. And the final one I'm going to do is this one. Spider-Man 1, Miles Morales, or Spider-Man 2. 52%. We had over 1,000 votes on this one. 52% have gone with Spider-Man 1. 39% with Spider-Man 2. I've gone for Spider-Man 2. I think Spider-Man 2 is brilliant. I don't care that there's one or two missions where, you know, MJ turns out to have like amazing strength. I don't care. Spider-Man 2 was absolutely brilliant. It's so fast. It's so fluid. Yeah, Sotness, he's saying, you know, it's not that kind of bar. It's not that kind of bar, Sotness. Sotness is saying Spider-Man 1. Corey saying how Miles Morales scored so low. Yeah, I know. It's really low. It's a great game as well. It's a great game. Spider-Man 1 story with Spider-Man 2 gameplay and graphics will be the best Spider-Man game. Gameplay of Spider-Man 2 is just so much better. The combat and the Venom abilities and the traversal in Spider-Man 2 are incredible. And the MJ missions in Spider-Man 2 were not as tiresome as in the first. A lot of people liking the Venom gameplay. That's pretty good. JJ is saying Spider-Man 2 because we've got Venom and the Flame. That just leaves for a bigger story in Spider-Man 3 with a Green Goblin as well. We have someone there liking Miles because of the winter. Yeah, I think someone's actually said it there. The hate Miles Morales is getting is crazy. It's still a crazy poll, that, I think. Corey saying Spider-Man 2 is the best. I love how people had a problem with giving MJ a stun gun, but didn't complain as much about game over screens when you got caught in the multiple MJ and Miles sneaking sections. I just think people are quick to moan. That's all it is. Spider-Man 2 is quality, absolute quality. Saxmani saying you replayed that Venom level so many times. Yeah, such a good game. Playing as Venom is brilliant. Zotnist, you saying MJ missions never bothered you, they made the narrative sense and just mixed things up. Right, guys. I think we're done. Very good podcast. Very interesting discussion, guys. Very interesting. Yeah, Sotness, you had zero problems with lab puzzles and mini games too. Classic Insomniac for me. Yeah, it's a great game. I want to see what they do with Spider-Man 3, the Venom game. There's a lot. There's a lot to do in those games. Spider-Man 2 was brilliant. Going back to Spider-Man 1, still a good game. Don't get me wrong. Still a great game. All three are good games. But you can tell, you can feel the difference going from Spider-Man 1 to Spider-Man 2. The flow of the game in number 2 is brilliant. It looks better, feels better. The action's more, impactful. And of course, the abilities that Venom has is incredible. Anyway, it's time to end the stream now, guys. Thank you, Sotonist. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Or are you still holding out that Marvel Greenlight's Venom game? Oh, yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. That's the next one. Venom is next. 2027, possibly a PlayStation 6 launch title. So a Venom game, a smaller experience, a Miles Morales-esque experience, exclusive to the PlayStation 6 launch. There you go. So thanks, guys. Appreciate your time this evening. Hope you've had a good podcast. Have a nice evening wherever you guys are, and I will catch you on the next episode of the PlayStation podcast. That'll be episode 8.